And good Wednesday to you. I'm James Brierton. It is Wednesday, March the 1st, 2023. We have a jam-packed evening for you. You're taking a live look right now at SpaceX Dragon called Endeavour. In just a little while, 4 men are going to make another attempt at lifting off tonight from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, as they are set to begin a 6-month stay at the International Space Station. We'll take you down to Kennedy, get live reports, and a look behind the scenes at how a launch like this happens coming up in just a few minutes. We will keep an eye on what's happening at Kennedy as we welcome in the rest of our Carolina Weather Group panel on this live show on this Wednesday night. I got Frank Strait in Columbia, South Carolina, Scotty Powell in Myrtle Beach, and Jared Smith in Charleston, South Carolina. Jared's very familiar with that rocket. We were keeping a close eye on it the other night. The man who was pushing all of the buttons and did a fabulous job. My continued appreciation to Jared. I'll see you guys back here in a few minutes when we have the Crew-6 astronauts come on out and wave goodbye once again to their friends and family. But until then, we'll let you guys talk about a potential severe weather threat coming up this week in the Carolinas. Jared, why don't you take it from here?
You know, it's going to be interesting to see if anything can happen. There's a lot of wind. There's a lot of shear. But that ridge is, Frank, I don't know about you, but I've been looking at this for the past couple of days, and look, when the NAM is not going apocalyptic,
right,
right,
right, when the cams are saying, whatever.
It's you know, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is you know, when I'm looking at this, you know, I mean, it's going to be windy on Friday. I think that's you know, that's a certain day for sure. A certain takeaway for that, and you know, in looking at the data and looking at everything there, are those astronauts walking out now?
It does seem like they're getting a head start here. They're going to go to the elevator, and if you were with us on late Sunday night, they couldn't get the elevator door to close initially. So we'll see here.
Always a bad sign when the elevator's not working.
Right, let's see. It looks
yeah,
like
and then when they got to the launch pad...
Nope.
Is this a replay?
I know. It's like deja vu all over again.
So when we were here Monday or Saturday, Sunday, whatever day that was, it's all a blur. When we were here for that, we saw the
very much feel like a replay, but I mean that I think is just I think that's how space flight works, right? All this is choreographed.
I mean, it's all routine.
Is that the same angle the camera took on?
I don't know.
Yeah,
about
it looks
that,
like they just dropped the camera on the floor.
They did that last time too.
Yeah,
they did that. They did that last time too. But you know, so when they got out to the launch pad, all the astronauts kept walking up to the elevator that was out of order. They had to move over to the other elevator, load them 2 at a time. It's pretty funny.
I'd have been like, no, I'm taking the stairs. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to stretch my legs anyway. I'm about to be sitting down for like 8 straight hours. So
yeah, but yeah, going back to the risk for severe storms, I'm going to switch over to my. I'm just going to switch over to my other camera here. We're going to go up to the full Monty here, the full radar here, and pretty busy night actually in the Mid-South. You see some showers and thunderstorms, numerous tornado warnings now in northern Alabama, with some pretty good-looking severe thunderstorms. Actually, some decent damaging wind gusts there possible with those. So certainly something that that we'll want to that's going to weaken before it gets here into the Carolinas on Thursday. Again, Thursday, tomorrow being Thursday, looks okay. Friday, there's a pretty strong trough that's going to eject out. It's going to take on a bit of that negative tilt, but it's going to go into the Ohio Valley and kind of glance us because, again, that ridge to the south, I mean, this guy is still, he's still pretty strong.
Oh, yes, it is. And it looks like it's going to stay strong. I mean, having this little system go by to the north will knock it back a bit, but only kind of temporarily. And it's because of that. It's because of that track is the reason why I've been saying in the weather alerts I write for South Carolina DNR that I think that the upstate has the greatest chance for seeing severe weather, because it looks like that's where the best parameters are going to be. In addition to the fact that's where the shear looks best, but also that's where the timing looks best, because it looks as though this severe weather outbreak reaches the Western Carolinas late in the day or early in the evening. So the atmosphere will be cooling during the evening, and so becoming less unstable. So I think the best combination of instability and shear is going to be in the Western Carolinas and upstate South Carolina. But there's not a zero potential elsewhere. If nothing else, like you mentioned, there's a lot of wind. The winds are very strong aloft, and you only have to go up a couple thousand feet to get to those strong winds. Any thunderstorm, even a weaker one, could pull those winds down to the surface.
Yeah, the mixing height is not too high on Friday, but like you said, I mean, we're going to have 925 millibars. It's roughly a 1,000 foot or so off the deck. Like, that's still going to be going about 50, 60 knots
Right.
in the afternoon. So that's, again, it's not going to take much. I expect that wind advisories are going to go up across much of the area as we see the astronauts walking out.
To walk you through this a little bit, I had the
Yeah.
opportunity to be there on Sunday night for those of you who watched our live stream from Kennedy Space Center. So these 4 astronauts, 2 American, 1 from the United Arab Emirates, and 1 from Russia, are waving goodbye to friends and family after being in quarantine for about 2 weeks now. They did have the opportunity to have some of their very close family members quarantine with them. Some of them may have taken NASA up on those opportunities, but again, some of their extended family and friends now out here near the NASA operations building. They're going to go ahead and get into Tesla Model X vehicles in just a few minutes, and then they're going to take a ride over to Launch Complex 39A. They did this exact routine to a T on Sunday night for what was the first attempted launch of this 6-month stay to the International Space Station. These 4 men are what known as Crew-6. They are actually, though, the 7th SpaceX flown crew to the International Space Station from U.S. soil, if you include the Demo 2 flight that carried 2 astronauts with it. This is going to take a few minutes here. They're going to wave goodbye to their friends and family. Don't expect, as I said the other night, to see any hugs or kisses or anything like that. They don't want to bring any sort of germs, any sort of contact with them up to the International Space Station. There is no doctor's office there, and that is why they do this quarantine. The quarantine does predate the pandemic. It has nothing to do with COVID. It is just a cautionary piece that they've done all the way going back to the Apollo program. You probably remember actually in the Apollo program when they'd come back down and be in the retro van talking to CBS or the president or whoever it may be. So I was invited down as a part of the NASA social event, and if my friends are where they were last time, they'd be off to the screen right if they got an opportunity to head back out here to watch the astronauts wave goodbye. We'll check in with them coming up probably later on in the evening hours, find out if they were able to accommodate that difficult logistic again. Jared, we know from all of our conversations that you had an opportunity to see the last shuttle go up, but let me ask Frank, because I don't think I've ever asked Frank this. Frank, have you ever witnessed a rocket launch in person?
No, I just missed it, though, once when I was a kid. When I was, I guess, 11 or 12, our family went down to Orlando. We visited Disney World while we were down there, and then on our way out, we stopped at the Kennedy Space Center and toured that one day. And it was interesting. One of the space shuttles, I don't remember which one, but one of the space shuttles was out on the launch pad, and it was being launched a few days later. So I did get to see that. I got to tour the assembly building, and I saw the creeper that carried the space shuttle out to the launch pad. I think they're still using that the same machinery now.
They have 2 crawlers.
And
I learned this past weekend that only one of them has been retrofitted to carry the Artemis and the SLS tower. So they have 2, but only one of them is really operational at the moment.
Yeah, so I was kind of mad. I was trying to talk my dad into sticking around an extra day or 2 so that we could watch the launch, but he wouldn't do it. So I'm kind of mad at him.
You can see on the top part of your screen 2 other folks, maybe 3 other folks dressed in the blue outfit of astronauts. So they have some fellow astronauts out here. Now, this gentleman, I believe, maybe, and also that may have been a woman who just walked past the screen here, looked to have the United Arab Emirates flag on their on their patch on their shoulder. So I don't know if they were alternates or backups or if they were just companions along with the one UAE astronaut that's going up. But certainly you can see there are other astronauts out here cheering on. And now we can actually see the friends and family are coming up to the Tesla vehicles. Now that the astronauts have been put inside or place themselves inside the back of these Tesla vehicles, the friends and family can kind of come past the rope line and get a little bit closer. Some of them wearing masks. Some of them might still have their windows up. I'm certainly trying to paint a picture for anyone who might be listening to the audio version of this week's Carolina Weather Group episode, because this is certainly a very interesting Venn diagram here. We're talking the severe weather potential in the Carolinas on Friday, and we'll get back to that conversation in a minute, as we're also continuing to track this special coverage of NASA's SpaceX Crew-6 here on the Carolina Weather Group.
Yeah, and James, to kind of keep it on the space topic there for a second, this is probably the best night they're going to have to launch weather-wise. Looking at the forecast over the next couple days from the 45th Weather Squadron from the U.S. Space Force, they go to a 20% chance of a weather-related scrub, and then a 40% chance of a weather-related scrub the day after.
The weather's looking pretty good tonight. It's not as good as it was on Sunday night. That was extremely favorable. They got a 95% chance of good weather, like you said, at the launch site tonight, and they're hoping that the weather through the ascent corridor is still good. They're monitoring it. So it's not bad, but I think Frank's got a look here for us as you can kind of see what is to come across the United States over the course of the next 48 hours or so. Okay, the astronauts now making their move away here from the NASA operations building. That license plate on that particular Tesla vehicle saying Crew Dragon, which is the name of the spaceship that they will be riding. Here through the darkness now, they will take a very quick trot over to Launch Complex 39A, and we'll continue to monitor these shots, including the dash cam that was added during Crew 5 as they make their police and military escort over to that launch complex. It'll take them past the iconic vehicle assembly building and the press site before they look up ceremoniously at their new home for the next 24 hours. When they get to that rocket, we will show it to you. They do the very classic lean back as we talked on Sunday night. We'll see it again in a few minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and slide this back over to a corner, guys, because I know we have a few minutes and you guys can continue to talk about the severe weather potential with folks watching here in the Carolinas as we keep a close eye on the forecast for Friday, Jared.
Yeah. And I really think that, when we're talking severe weather potential, I think that the wind fields are such that I think we have to respect the possibility of that. But I think at the same time, the thermodynamics are going to be questionable.
It does not look like the greatest setup with the best instability for widespread thunderstorms. But on the other hand, the dynamics are great. You've got you have so much wind aloft and the shear's there for sure, especially in the upstate. So potential's there. It's just we'll just have to see how it shakes out, and hopefully it's a little more clear tomorrow. While we're talking about severe weather, let's back up to this evening. We kind of have some breaking news here. Go back to that satellite image.
Let me just do my radar only here, and let me get back to that real quick, and I will transition. There we go.
Yep, there we are. The radar satellite composite. You can see those thunderstorms that are in Mississippi and Alabama and Tennessee heading this way. And the Storm Prediction Center has extended the marginal risk area that they have for this event to the east, and it includes western and central North Carolina now, and the I-85 corridor and North and South Carolina. So we are going to have to be on the lookout for some isolated severe storms. It looks like isolated damaging winds is going to be the primary concern here, but so we will have to keep an eye out for that through the overnight hours, and potentially seeing a severe storm here and there during the late night hours.
Interesting. It's a bit of a hail-driven risk too. So this is the hail potential. It's a 5% hail potential across here, and then the wind potential is actually more towards the Western Carolinas. But yeah, they're highlighting this for the potential for severe hail. So there you go. It's been a minute. I feel like it's been a minute since we had a hail-driven marginal around here, and And sure enough, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like we've got going for us. So be interesting when we get into later, later this evening, overnight. We may have some hailers go into Charlotte and Greensboro here, depending on how well, because I suspect those are going to go more elevated, but there's still plenty of
Probably
instability
so.
aloft.
Right, especially east of the mountains. We have a kind of a bit of a wedge set up.
Yeah,
east of the mountains right now. So
yep, you got that wedge there.
Makes sense that would there would only be a hail threat in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Frank, speaking of things that are cold, we'll get back to cold. Well, first of all, meteorological winter is over.
Correct.
And that ended. That kind of went by the wayside. Today's first day of meteorological spring, and I'll tell you what. I mean, I put winter in scare quotes because it really wasn't. Aside from that week and a half in December,
right?
Really, not much to speak of as the pollen indicates. So you have to grab that tweet again if you don't mind.
Pollen. Let's bring that up. The tweet from Ed Petrowski of ABC 15 in Myrtle Beach, WPDE, showing what it looks like at Myrtle Beach with all that pollen in the Atlantic. It looks like there has been a hazardous material spill. It's not. It's just pollen, but it looks gross.
Oh yeah,
in the waters off Myrtle Beach right now.
My black SUV looks like a school bus at this point. I don't know if I need to stop at railroad crossings now and open the door. I'm just confused. I might get a stop sign on the side and see if anybody notices. It is gnarly, and that is because we just had in a lot of places the second warmest winter on record. In many spots, including right here in Charleston. Second warmest winter on record at Charleston International Airport. Well, second warmest February on record at the Charleston International Airport. I want to say, I just wrote this. I just wrote this post. I should remember this. I'm getting all my records confused. There's just so many records, but I think it was the third warmest winter on record down here. That's saying right. something.
Yeah. Melissa was looking over that stuff today, and she'll have some kind of report out the next day or so from us at the climate office. But it was a high-ranking February and winter for warmest winter for several stations in South Carolina. And we really only had one cold snap, and it was a doozy, no doubt about it. But we actually had a below zero reading, and even in South Carolina at Caesar's Head from that cold snap. Yeah. But that was it. That's really the only winter we've had, especially across the coastal plain, particularly the low country, where you only had, 3 days where it got down to freezing, aside from that cold snap at the end of December?
We didn't have any days below freezing at or below freezing in February. The coldest we got here in Charleston at the North Charleston Climate Site, which is usually the pretty good representative of of the area, it only got down to 33 once, and that was early. That was February 4th. So it was the only fifth time that we've ever had a February that did not have a sub-freezing temperature.
Yeah.
But
something else that's interesting, as best I can tell, there hasn't been a flake of snow anywhere in South Carolina this winter, I should say. There's been some sleet a couple times, and that goes into the climate record as snow. Mm-hmm. So there's been a couple of times where there's been a trace of sleet. But I went back and spot checked those observer forums, and where that trace of snowfall was reported, in every case I checked, it was sleet. So that is extremely rare for there to be no snow. We're not known for snow in South Carolina, but only once has it happened in the past before this year did we go through an entire winter with no measurable snowfall.
That's impressive.
100 years ago.
God, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Wow. Typically you hear something in the upstate.
Right.
At this point of year. But and it's not that we didn't have good setups atmospherically, except for the whole temperature problem. We had that rolling ball of an upper low. Just didn't have the cold air.
Right. Yeah. We only had the cold air for that roughly week around Christmas. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah. But with that being said, March can bring some surprises.
Yes, and I've been concerned about a surprise like that. It may not be that much of a surprise. Some of the long-range models are showing a pretty decent cold snap around the middle of March. starting about 10 days from now. It's something we have to watch out. Peach farmers are not going to be happy if it shakes out the way certain models have been showing that, with temperatures dropping into the 20s. I hope that doesn't happen. But there'll be a lot of farmers, not just the peach farmers, that will be unhappy if it gets that far below freezing around the 15th.
Yeah, and this is that time of year where we kind of we could be potentially watching $1 billion weather disaster in slow motion right in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not one of those things that you chase, and it's not what you traditionally associate with $1 billion weather disaster, but this is how we usually get the first one of the year, is through crop loss due to significant freezing temperatures. So
and we have to take this all with a grain of salt at this range. We're talking 10 days or so from now at this point. And so some of the models, the GFS, for example, isn't all that cold. It doesn't show any temperatures below freezing, at least in South Carolina. It does in North Carolina. But the other models look different and colder, put it that way.
Yeah.
Some of them a lot colder.
I think the bottom line is just, despite how warm it's been, it's still probably, climatology tells us that it is still too early to plant. I mean, down here in the low country, and, speaking for us, mid-March is the average last freeze. We've seen it go into April. So, if you got sensitive plants that you're looking at, if you're getting really excited to plant, maybe give it a couple more weeks at least.
Right.
That's probably, yeah.
For us here, trying to plant stuff at the end of February or early March is just not a good move, and unless it's something you can protect, like if you're planting herbs in pots that you'll put out later, or you're starting tomatoes in pots and you're going to put them out in the garden later on. That's fine. You can bring those inside, but you don't want to put anything in the ground that you can't protect this early.
Yeah,
it's just too dangerous. You'll run too much of a risk of losing them.
Yeah, no doubt. But in the meantime, I think we're all just going to start wearing these again, because
I've legitimately thought about doing that. And for the audio listeners, Jared's holding up a mask, because 2020, I had no allergies. Amazing. Imagine that.
KN95s. I mean,
it's like they actually filter stuff or something.
You might need the big N95 though. You might need the tight seal. With that pollen is nuts.
I almost feel like my allergies were worse last year, and I don't know if it was shock of coming back to like exposure to it, or if it was just a seasonal change. But I definitely observed it last year.
Yeah, James, while you were gone, we showed a picture from Ed Petrowski.
I saw it earlier.
Yeah, the hazmat situation, aka all of the pollen in the ocean there. It's a good thing they got the spy balloon before all the pollen. Otherwise, it'd have been coated in yellow.
It would have made it easier to see.
It would have, maybe, but yeah. I mean, there's been a haze. I know that we've seen a haze around here the last couple days, and there seemed to have been some smoke in the air today that was giving kind of a little bit of a tint to the sunset here.
Yeah, there are some prescribed burns going on around South Carolina. So I'm not sure about North Carolina, but I know there are a few happening in South Carolina. So you might be smelling some smoke here and there, but it's one of those things we've got under control. Don't have to worry about it getting out of control. It's been a good bit of rain lately. So
I got a phone call today at WCNC from somebody saying that there was a fire up in Watauga County. I don't know if it was intentional or not, because we have had some prescribed burns, especially in northern Mecklenburg County. But they're definitely around, aren't they?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think before we get too far, before we get back into, we see, in the corner of the screen here, Crew-6 is headed to the launch pad. They're arriving at the launch pad now.
I think they are arriving at the launch pad.
Yeah, they are arriving right now.
Because what you see on the left-hand side is the very end of what was once the crawler path, and they came past the SpaceX vehicle assembly building. Later on in tonight's special broadcast, we'll take you inside NASA's vehicle assembly building, but SpaceX actually plopped their vehicle assembly building right onto the very end of the crawler path, and then it just kind of goes up this little hill here, just like the Teslas are doing right now.
Yep. So Teslas are going to get there. Here's what's going to happen. We're very well versed in this at this point. Teslas are going to get there. The astronauts are going to get out. They're going to size up the rocket. They're going to bend back and take a look at it, and because
it's like you've done this before.
Then they're going to go to the elevator that doesn't work, and then realize that's not the right elevator, and then they're going to go to the elevator that does work.
I'm hoping they've got that figured out tonight.
I'm hoping they got that figured out too, but we'll see. And then from there, they walk down that gantry there, and then the SpaceX ninjas, the men in black, literally they look like ninjas. They're masked. We're in all black. They got numbers on the back to identify them. They're going to go in, and they're going to go. They're going to strap them in. They're going to go through the pre-check procedure. They're going to
get the Wi-Fi password, all that stuff.
Any minute thing. They're going to inspect the door with flashlights, make sure all that is good, and then when everybody's satisfied that the capsule is in good shape, then they'll seal it off, and then all of the pre-flight checks will commence, and hopefully the igniter fluid will work this time. The T-tube, hopefully that'll work this time.
For anybody that's not picking up what we're laying down, this is the second launch attempt of the Crew-6 mission to the International Space Station. We got all the way down to T-minus 2 minutes on late Sunday night, early Monday morning, before they had to scrub. And now this is going to be their second launch attempt. They did have other windows that they skipped for a variety of reasons, but this will be their second actual launch attempt. And Jared, while I was looking over footage today, I found this picture of me from Kennedy. Here it is. Here, this is how I feel right now. Come on, cross those fingers. We can do this.
Yeah, that's a pretty standard NASA social look if I ever saw it.
Right. I believe the comms just updated us that they have arrived on schedule.
Cool. And again, they're good at schedule. They're great at schedule. It's just if the igniter fluid doesn't work, you can't get the thing off the ground. So there you go. Before we get too far into the space side of things, I know this. There's going to be the astronauts will come out and take a look and everything like that. But I did want to go back to some news that broke while we were here, while we were talking a few minutes ago, and that is the marginal risk for severe weather that was now extended into North Carolina, a hail-driven threat.
And what day is this one?
This is today. This is tonight.
This is tonight.
This is tonight. So thunderstorms ongoing, and we'll go back to the SATRAD and all that stuff. This thunderstorm complex here that's ongoing is going to run into some more stable air as it gets into the Carolinas, but looks like there's still going to be enough elevated instability to potentially allow for some hail to develop there. I think Frank's taking a look at the meso-analysis right now. If you want to chime in on that. Yeah.
Yes, there it is, and you can see the wedge showing up pretty clearly here. These the dew point temperatures are shaded. The green shaded areas are 60 degrees plus dew point. 56 to 60 is the light blue area, and then the white is areas less than 56. So it's cool and thus very stable near the surface across the far northern part of South Carolina and much of North Carolina right now. And as a result, we're just not going to see anything other than a potential hailstorm from thunderstorms that ride up and over that cool layer near the surface that's very stable. So, but this just goes to show that some pretty vigorous thunderstorms might be riding above that cooler layer near the surface, and as a result, maybe cause some hail that reaches severe limits.
James, I don't have audio. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Welcome back in, Scotty Powell, joining us from Myrtle Beach. As we continue, I know our audio podcast listeners who might be listening at this another date really feel like we're probably hopping around here a little bit on you, and I apologize. This is kind of a very special edition of the Carolina Weather Group on this Wednesday, March 1st, but we did want to make sure we put this audio out after broadcasting live to Facebook and YouTube and all the networks of the Carolina Weather Group, so you weren't left out. But obviously we have a lot of very timely space news, a lot of very timely weather news. So if you haven't already found us on YouTube, that's where you can always join these live happenings. Love our audio podcast. There's a lot of rich things you can do with that, but sometimes it's just happening live. We'll do it live.
I'm not sure if you guys, sorry, I was actually talking to the station because I was off today, and I'm working Friday, so we're kind of getting a plan there. So I'm not sure if you touched on Myrtle Beach or not. If you haven't, I can kind of give a quick update.
We just looked at pollen.
Oh, okay. Well,
Before Scotty does that, I need him to fix his audio because you are way too overmodulated. Check, make sure we got the right audio device. I don't think we do because I can hear your ceiling fan.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Okay, while we do that, I'll take another live look here at the aerials provided to us from NASA and their helicopter circling around Launch Complex 39A. There you can see the Falcon 9 from SpaceX with the Crew Dragon capsule named Endeavour up top. Our astronauts arrived a short time ago. We have not yet seen them come back out, but they're going to come out in pairs of 2 and do the iconic lean back. So, Scotty, we'll give you another audio check here and then be prepared for me to interrupt you for the iconic lean back.
Is this better? You guys
That
better?
is so much better.
All right, good deal. So yes, you saw the pollen. I'm mad at Ed because I actually posted the pollen picture first, and then he blew up. You know, he got a better picture
Because he's Ed.
That's right. But I'm telling you, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen today. I was off work today, took a walk out on the beach because it's so nice, and you know, like how you see oil slicks in the ocean. Well, this was a pollen slick is what I call it. It's just a big old line of pollen. And occasionally the waves would get caught up in the pollen and it would be this greenish yellow thing. And you're just like, that's so nasty. But anyways, severe weather wise, I think our area, and you guys, please correct me if I'm wrong here, because I'm not sure what you all covered there, but looks like as it gets to the coast, it's really lacking the moisture needed for us to see widespread storms. It's definitely going to be some gusty winds out there. So even if we got some showers, that could transition some of those gustier winds to the surface. But as of severe weather, we may luck out here in the Grand Strand, southeastern North Carolina, as it looks like a lot of the energy and moisture is more further to our north. But it's something we're watching. I think we're still under that slight risk of severe weather. But I think right now the main thing would be the gusty winds, maybe even outside of thunderstorms. We could see some wind gusts 35, 40 miles per hour. So, and obviously that could bring down a tree or two and cause some power issues. But overall, severe weather-wise, I'm not totally sold on it here. I think we're just kind of lacking that moisture that's just not here.
It's so interesting because this showed up on like the day 6 or day 7 outlook from the SPC as a 15% chance risk. Obviously, a lot can change in 6 or 7 days, and I'm not trying to hold them to that. But what I'm trying to say is it's not often that you get that early of a heads up. And I think that's why, even though this seems to be fizzling, it seems to be trending down for Friday, I think a lot of us are still sitting there going, okay, but I'm actually going to give it another beat to see if it bounces back, because of how early we kind of saw it coming. Again, that doesn't commit us to it, but because that was such an unusual heads up, I'm willing to almost wait it out more than I think had it not been that way.
You have to respect the wind field.
Yeah, I think, like you said, Jared, the wind field is amazing. I mean, we could see some gusty winds, and it even a heavier shower, it brings down some of those wind gusts. So the wind energy is definitely there. I think it was Monday night, Jared, you may remember, my days are running together, but we had that warm front move through, and Monday night was extremely windy here along the coast. I mean, you could hear around 10:30, 11 o'clock the winds, and it looks like we've got some action here, James.
Yeah, we'll take you back out to Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. You can see the astronauts here. I can't tell from this distance which 2 astronauts this are, but you can see them leaning back. And this was something that really started with the SpaceX Demo 2 flight because of the way that the futuristic and stylish-looking astronaut suits are built. They have to actually physically arch their backs backwards in order to see the top of the rocket. Spoiler alert, I think they're going to have this elevator situation figured out. The one on the right is roped off. No, guys, go left. Oh, guys, we just did this 2 nights ago.
I wonder if they. I wonder if that's at this point just a
gag,
good luck thing. I don't know.
There's a lot of tradition.
I mean, maybe they watched the replay of the Carolina Weather Group.
Yes,
coverage,
that's exactly what happened. And they
saw
went,
that we
Jared
were
found
making
that
fun
really
of them.
funny. Yeah,
and they were like, "Oh, we're going to get that guy again."
So tell me, James, maybe you know what's with those numbers on the backs of those support staff guys that are dressed in black?
I think it's like Clone Wars. So you have to be able to tell them apart.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I do think that's more or less what it comes down to. Is I think just because of the head to toe of the ninja outfit, including a lot of face coverings, it's I think just for identification reasons. And again, the face coverings, whether that's pandemic related or not, I don't know. We didn't do any SpaceX launches pre-COVID, but again, every little thing becomes a foreign object. During Crew-5, after they got the capsule sealed off, they had to reopen it because they detected a foreign object. It turned out to be a strand of hair.
Maybe they're just trying not to breathe in pollen.
It could totally be that.
Totally
I mean,
that.
that would definitely be true if they were launching from Myrtle Beach.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you keep in mind too is that if you look back at old footage of the Apollo program, you look back at old footage of the space shuttle. I mean, they're always wearing that kind of protective gear. It's essentially a clean room. At the end of the day, this is essentially a clean room, and so they've got to maintain the integrity of that. And SpaceX
I'm going
just
to show
happens
you
to
guys
just
something here real fast. The astronaut's going to pick up the phone on the wall. It looks like a pay phone, and he's making a call to a close friend or a family member. Again, you're going to see them. They have an opportunity here to make one last contact. There you go, phone in hand, giving a call to somebody.
That's so cool. I'm glad you got to experience this, James, because now we get all the background knowledge and the specific details that go on. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, the NASA social event is really cool, and it's open to anybody. Yes, they make selections. Yes, 25 people are lucky enough to get selected. I was one of them for the Crew-6, but it's open to anyone to apply. You can have lots of followers. You could have a little amount of followers. You could be a still photographer. You could be a video photographer. You could just be a selfie photographer on TikTok. They want to hear your story, and anyone is eligible.
Yeah, then they go. They're walking up. Yep, these guys are.
That was a quick phone call.
I believe. Are these still the same two first astronauts?
Oh, okay.
No. No, I actually think we may have missed the camera shot of these.
Oh, they
two
didn't
moving
back.
back.
They didn't go back to it.
They didn't go back to it, maybe because we were watching the phone call happening. But all four astronauts are now atop the tower. They will walk across the crew arm and begin the slow process of getting buckled in and doing comm checks. I'm going to step aside. I will join you back out here at the top of the hour for more coverage of the Crew-6 launch from Kennedy Space Center. But I will let Jared, Frank, and Scotty continue on with our weather chat here this evening.
Yeah, we'll bring this home, and we'll bring this home. We'll keep NASA in the corner there. We'll keep an eye on that. Love that worm. I love that they brought back the old worm logo for at least some of this stuff. And then they're going to walk across the gantry and then get strapped in and get ready to go. But Scotty, where we were talking about before is that bathysphere weather potential. I mean, and that 15% kind of it seems to me that they're going to probably trim that back to the Western Carolinas, put us in a marginal. I think again, we have to respect the wind field here. I mean, the wind field is, seriously impressive.
It's going to be gusty, no matter if there's storms or no storms. It's definitely going to be some gusty winds. And I know yesterday, I haven't looked at much today, but yesterday our models, our in-house Baird model was showing, from Charleston up to Myrtle Beach to Wilmington, 35, 40 mile per hour wind gusts, just outside of any storms going on.
Yep.
So it's definitely going to be windy out there, so you can at least expect that. And then as the atmosphere works, you have a lot more wind energy above our heads. You could amplify that 30, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gust to 60, 70. And if you get some heavier rain to drag that to the surface, that's where you could see some isolated damage and wind gusts. So like you said, you just have to respect the environment of what's all going on, not only here at the surface, but what's going on above our head.
And I think it's also worth, keeping in mind too, that the wind shear at the 1 kilometer and the 3 kilometer level, pretty good.
And we saw that was it Monday? We had that warning pop up in upstate South Carolina.
Yeah, we had.
I think it was Monday. Yeah.
Of all days for us to have a tornado warning.
We were in the White Room.
Yeah, and it was quick. It was one of those quick, 3-4 frames, and then it dissipated. But there was just enough shear in the environment. I don't believe, Frank, you probably are more connected than I was. I don't think anything was confirmed with that, but radar image was.
I don't think they even surveyed out there.
Yeah.
I don't think they had any reports of damage. But it's one of those things that the rotation showed up for about 5 minutes, and they got tight enough that they decided it'd be best to issue a warning, and then 10 minutes later, it was really gone. So it didn't last long.
But that's kind of the setup you can see Friday. You can see one of those, for about a 5-10 minute period, enough time for a tornado to drop down quickly and then dissipate. So it's something you got to watch.
Hazardous showers.
That's right.
That's what they call them. in the special weather statements here. Starting to look at some of the the high res runs for tomorrow too, and I think the other thing too is that we may have a chance of showers tomorrow. We could see some thunderstorms down here in the low country, a very slight chance. Again, I think that ridge is going to kind of stamp that out a little bit. There's a little shortwave coming by.
Captain, ingress has started.
And all right, so they're getting into the ship now. But yeah, there could be some showers across the area. I'm looking at the high res, just peeking at this the onesie for tomorrow, and it sneaks it sneaks some of that
clear.
in.
Seat 2, help me.
Kaylin's asking a question about a tornado risk for Friday. I do believe if there's, I guess, a severe weather threat, it would be the upstate of South Carolina, western North Carolina, into the Piedmont. Frank, we were even talking earlier tonight, that could maybe even extend partially into the Midlands. But if there is an area to watch in the Carolinas, it's definitely the upstate of South Carolina into western North Carolina.
Yeah, that's where I think the best combination of shear and instability is going to be.
Yeah, and this towards Campobello. So
good evening, Woody and Steve. Good to hear from you.
So sounds like they're starting to do their comms checks. Here we're hearing the NASA feed in the background here. I'm gonna take that down a little bit more just so we can finish talking about the weather here. But you can see, the astronauts are up there. They're making phone calls, making sure they turn the oven off. Things like that. The dog is watered and the plants are fed. Things like that. Among other, who knows? I don't know what I would talk about if I had that call. But suffice to say, we got a couple showery days coming up, but the weekend looks good, and we're gonna actually have a little bit cooler weather this weekend. It looks like one front's gonna come through Friday, probably not knock things down too terribly much, but then Saturday night another front comes through. Seems to cool us off pretty nicely down here. We're going to get back in the low 70s as opposed to the upper 70s, as opposed to rewriting the record books,
as opposed to 86 like you had yesterday and today.
Right, exactly. We're just taking the record books and just scribbling all over them at this point. Scotty, I know that you weren't here for that first part of the discussion, but I want to go back to you and see, how has Myrtle Beach's record books fared? Because I'm pretty sure that you guys have had some rewriting up there too.
Let's see. Monday, Myrtle Beach broke a record. It was 76, and I think we got 78. I know 78 is what we got to. I think the record was 76 or 77, one of the two. So we broke that record. Yesterday, we were close to Florence. I think we were within a degree. I think the record was 82. We got to 81 in Florence. Myrtle Beach, we had just a little bit of a sea breeze kick in there at the end that kind of capped off the warming to the upper 70s. So the record was 80 degrees for Myrtle. So we were just short of that. Today we had some cloud cover that moved in. So we didn't do that, but we challenge tomorrow's again, a little bit cooler. I think our record is 79 in Myrtle. So that's depending on cloud cover and sea breeze. We could manage to get there before the sea breeze really kicks in the afternoon. So, but yeah, we broke one record and we're pretty close on a few other days.
Yeah, I'm again looking at the models here a little bit, and I think you're going to have you may have a little bit of a harder time there, but we're very light. Charleston's forecast at 84, record is 85, set 97. So we're going to get close again. We've been doing pretty well on rewriting those records. We just had our second warmest February in records, third warmest winter in record here.
It's funny you say that. We Myrtle Beach, I think, was the fourth warmest February on record. My chief meteorologist and I, Frank Johnson, yesterday we were looking back, and the top 5 warmest Februaries was all followed by below normal Marches. Now, some of them were a little bit below normal than others, but the trend was if you're warm in February, above normal, you're below normal in March. So we were talking about, Frank was alluding to a cool down. We were talking about, does that happen again this year? Because it seemed like all winter we were supposed to see that colder weather, and we may get a day or two, but we warmed right back up. So how strong is that ridge going to be? Is it where's that cutoff between really cold temperatures and around average? Is it here across the low country of South Carolina, or does it get in the colder weather, get into the South Carolina? I think North Carolina, the further north you get into North Carolina, you're definitely going to see some cooler temperatures. But where does that cut off here in South Carolina at? Does part of the state get it, the northern half? And where you are, Jared, do you stay a little bit warmer? It's going to be interesting because I think somewhere right there, Midlands South, there's going to be a cutoff somewhere.
Yeah, it could be, and the models, of course, as you'd expect, 10 days out are kind of all over the place with just how cold it's going to get. The GFS doesn't really show it getting below freezing anywhere in South Carolina, and INSEP's ensembles aren't all that cold either. But look at the Canadian ensembles and especially the European ensembles; they're really cold. European ensemble control run was just nuts how cold it was around the 12th and 13th. It was just brutal for March, and let's hope that doesn't happen. And that model has a tendency to put out some wild solutions. On the other hand, it just goes to show what worst case scenario might be.
Yeah, and I think we all joked here, maybe at the beginning of February. It was like, if it is going to snow, it probably will be mid-March when everybody's just ready for winter to be over with, and then it finally does do something outside of the mountains. But
right, yeah, same story about the EPS control model. Yeah. It also was kind of showing a winter storm out toward the end of the run, which you can't say it won't happen, but you're certainly not going to put that in your forecast 14 days out.
I remember a couple of years ago, Jared. I'm not sure if he was with us yet, Frank, or not, but we had a little winter storm on the weekend, and we actually had snow and pollen mixed together. It was in March.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yellow snow.
Yeah. The other kind.
The other kind, the kind you don't normally think of.
Yeah. That's I mean, and we'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be, you always get concerned. We were talking about this earlier, and you always get concerned for the farmers. Crops going nuts, everything's going nuts. I mean, stuff's flowering left and right. My fig tree is losing its mind right now. It's so happy. It's just leafing out like crazy. And in 2017, when we had a really hard freeze after a very warm February, I remember vividly the leaves on that fig tree dying, and then new leaves just working their way around those old leaves that died after the freeze. And so yes, it was resilient, but it goes to show you that again, no such thing as a done deal here when it comes to winter.
Right.
Brad Panvich tweeted out today, March is the most variability in weather in the Carolinas. I think record highs or like in the 90s, and the record low is like -4. It's like there's that much difference that can happen in March. It's just the crazy month.
Yeah, and you certainly can't rule out winter storms this late. I mean, I lived through one when I was about 10, March 24th of 1983. We had 10 inches of snow in Rock Hill from that day. It was the fourth day of spring.
Maybe it was 2017 when we had a foot of snow in Winston-Salem, Greensboro a couple of years ago.
That would
it was like March 25th. Yeah, it was like at the end of March.
And it's not that long ago. There was Rock Hill had an inch of snow on an early April morning. I don't remember exactly what year, but I remember it happening.
Oh yeah, I mean we've had events like that here.
I remember a few times St. Patrick's Day in Morganton when living there, we had snow on the ground. So.
Oh yeah, I remember. I mean, I vividly remember having this really slushy snow my freshman year of high school. That's 99, I want to say, 98, 99, somewhere in there. I mean, March of 99, we had this really slushy outbreak of snow. I remember everybody just stopped what they were doing, and they were like, "No!" And we all went outside, and and it was like, "No way!" Yeah, this really just slushy mess of snow. But yeah, it was snow. During the middle of the day, no less. It was it was kind of fun, but yeah, it just shows great smarch weather we're having here.
Exactly.
Right. I think
lousy smarch weather.
It was lousy smarch weather. Yeah, I think you just go back to The Simpsons for inspiration there. And
there was an interesting yesterday from Wilmington, NWS Wilmington, and I tweeted it out. They were looking back over winter, and for those who may say, we call meteorological winter from December 1st to the end of February. Even though spring doesn't start officially until March 20th or 21st, our seasons are a little bit different in meteorology, and the climate over the southeast North Carolina, northeast North Carolina was very resembled basically, I think, within a tenth of a degree or so of San Antonio, Texas this year. That was like the comparability, of what we experienced here this winter time. So it just tells you how warm it was.
Yeah.
San Antonio is warm all the time, unless you just get one of those freakishly crazy cold dives of air down there. Normally San Antonio is warm at any time of the year. So that just kind of shows you how warm this winter's been for some portions.
Yeah, that ridge.
Yep. Well, if you're wondering where all the cold air has been around Christmas, when we got kind of the doozy of a cold snap, but if you're wondering where the cold air has been, it's been out west. Jared, show him my screen chat, screen shot.
Oh, yes. Here we go.
Satellite of the western states right now with yet another winter storm going through California, Nevada, and Arizona right now. A lot of what you're looking at, the white stuff out there on the visible satellite picture, it's not clouds, it's snow. Even into Southern California, some of the mountain ranges. I think even into San Diego County, Jared, have some snow on them.
There was hail today on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah.
Right.
In Los Angeles. I got a text from a friend. Yeah. He's out there.
It was interesting to see the weather over there over this past weekend. I mean, there was places in Southern California, 900 feet in elevation, that had an inch of snow. Like, that's getting into Los Angeles and the outskirts, not the mountains, but even into the suburban areas, they were seeing accumulating snow. So pretty fascinating. One other thing to talk about, I don't know if you've noticed this, Jared, or not, but our sea surface temperature here in Myrtle Beach is already 61 degrees.
Yeah, let me that's a really good point, and that's what you start thinking about that too. It's like, oh my goodness, is this warm weather mean we're going to have more hurricanes? I wouldn't go that far, but you do think about those sea surface temperatures.
Yeah, and even if you just like, hey, you like a warmer ocean to get into, the water's already 61 at the end of February. If we get this trend up, it'd be like bath water this summer.
Yeah. We'll have to think about doing a hurricane seasonal prediction show sometime in April after the guys at Colorado State issue there.
Yes.
Maybe we can get Phil Klutzbach on talk about.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting too, with us, potentially flipping a neutral and maybe even in a Nino. That's
right. The crew is ready for contract.
It's going to be really, really, really interesting. So right now, let me see if I can.
SpaceX copies, stand by for umbilical comm check.
Yep. So we got comm checks going on and all that fun stuff. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to, we're getting into it. We're getting into a very meteorologically interesting time of year for sure. I'm
pulling up ocean temperatures, right? Water temperatures.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
Let's see down into Winna Bay.
Yeah. It's 65 at the Capers near shore.
Yeah. 70 degrees already in Winna Bay, which is in Georgetown.
Yeah.
Spring Bay Pier is 61. The Apache Pier in North Myrtle Beach is 62. Wilmington, 62
Commander,
already.
Pilot, MS1, MS2, comm check.
So those
Commander has you loud and clear.
Yeah,
water temperatures are warm.
I mean, quite a thing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so
Commander,
any final weather thoughts before we transition to James in space?
Well, one thing we better talk about is the current situation we have with the marginal risk that's been extended into the Western Carolinas.
Yeah, this is
talk about that one more time before
MS1
James takes over.
Yeah, and again, that's something that's kind of broken as we've been on the air tonight. We'll go back to that look here, and again, we have marginal severe weather risk stretching from Greenville to Charlotte to Greensboro into Western North Carolina, and this is going to be mostly a hail-driven risk. So we'll go to the hail probabilities here, and about 5% risk of maybe a hailstorm, a little bit of a marginally severe hail, as we have a complex of thunderstorms that's continuing to move across the Mid-South this evening. We've had plenty of tornado warnings on this line. We've had severe thunderstorm warnings on this line. It's going to run into some more stable air over the Carolinas, and that will certainly help to limit that more of that wind damage threat. But as the storms become a little bit more elevated, there's still plenty of instability. Could see
SpaceX
some
copies.
marginal hail there. So
Initiating seat rotation.
kind of an interesting night. You might hear some pings of hail tonight if you're in western or central North Carolina.
Yep, and looking at the outlook, we can say one thing we have not been able to say all winter long is that it looks like an I-85 special. It's all north and west of I-85 tonight. We haven't been able to use that for a winter storm. We'll use it for a severe weather situation.
Yeah,
Marginal severe weather situation.
Yeah, this is what a season it's been. It's been quite a thing. So I know James is getting ready, but right now we're watching in the here on the NASA feed. And I know James is getting in here to take on some space coverage here, but we'll take the NASA feed here full real quick. You see that the astronauts, they are reclining into position. They've been strapped in. They are getting into position for flight. And from here, there is going to be lots of comm checks, lots of discussion as we get ready to see if Crew-6 can.
Dragon SpaceX seats are in the launch position.
Yep, there we go. Seats are in the launch position. The tray tables are up. Folded up. They've turned their phones off and they're preparing to launch. So
seats are in the fully inclined position now.
Yep.
Is this are their phones in plane mode or shuttle mode?
Space mode, yeah.
Space mode.
Yeah.
There's no shuttle here. Let's be clear.
Yeah, special mode only for astronauts. It's space.
This is a dragon.
Yeah, yeah. The dragon is going to breathe fire. So, like Candace put it the other night, the dragon is gonna spout fire and launch into the sky.
Yeah.
So,
Dragon SpaceX, you are go for.
Well, guys, I'm going to drop off and let James have more space on the screen here. So I'm going to bed, and you'll have fun with chasing the launch.
See what you did there.
See you, Frank.
See you, Frank. Take care.
All right, to all of our viewers right now, thanks for listening and watching this edition of the Carolina Weather Group. We're going to take you back out to Kennedy Space Center for live continuing coverage of the countdown of NASA, SpaceX, Crew-6. Countdown to launch coming away, 12:34 a.m. Eastern time tonight. Some of our viewers and listeners may be leaving us now. If not, stay tuned. We'll be back with more space coverage right after this.
SpaceX Dragon care is complete. We are ready for leak check.
SpaceX copies. You are go for Section 3 suit leak check.
And we are go for Section 3 suit leak check. That's in order.
And this is the voice of James Brierton in Charlotte, North Carolina, and you are continuing to watch coverage of NASA SpaceX Crew-6 from Kennedy Space Center on a special edition of the Carolina Weather Group. Our 4 astronauts, 2 Americans, 1 from the United Arab Emirates and 1 from Russia, are now inside their Crew Dragon named Endeavour. Just moments ago, launch officials moved their seats into the recline position, and they are now in what is called the launch position. And we are going to go through a series of comm checks and pressurization checks, very similar to what we saw when we were out here for the last launch attempt, which happened Sunday night into early Monday morning, was eventually scrubbed with T-minus 2 minutes on the clock because of a problem involving fuel in the engine. I was down there at Kennedy Space Center, but holding down the fort for us here at the Carolina Weather Group was Jared Smith, who is joining me once again. Jared, hello, here we are, deja vu all over again. My dear friend, how are you?
Oh, good. You know, it's kind of cool to do this because we know exactly what's going to happen. We've been through this. We've had our dress rehearsal.
We have. We know what's. They also had a dress rehearsal, so they've now done this 3 times in full getup.
Yeah, and it was a real, you know, again, Monday night or Sunday night, Monday morning. That was unfortunate. You know, they got all the way there, and you could hear the disappointment in their voice when the Capcom came across and was like, "Hey guys, yeah, scrub," and it's like, yeah, they're throwing the towel. So hopefully we get this off the ground, because again, when we were looking at the weather, tonight is going to be probably their best shot at it, because the odds progressively get worse tomorrow and then the next day, with storm systems and a cold front getting closer to Florida and potentially causing some adverse conditions. And again, the weather conditions for launching a rocket are very, very, very sensitive. Doesn't take much to scrub a rocket launch for weather, and they need it to be pretty close to perfect, and not just in Florida, but also downrange.
And that is a concern tonight. That is something that is on their watch list tonight. Although the weather at Kennedy seems to be 95% good, and you can see that here in this shot of Launch Complex 39A. They are also going to be watching that ascent corridor. It is decent.
Dragon 4 nominal 2.
SpaceX copy sync occurs. Closeout team will now perform final closeout steps and exit the capsule. Proceed to section 4, side hatch close, and report when ready to close the hatch. Additionally, stand by for ground station comm checks.
SpaceX Dragon copy for section 4, side hatch portion.
And you can see those SpaceX ninjas, as they are called, beginning the slow and delicate process of securing that door. We were talking about the weather over the ascent corridor. It's not perfect tonight, but it's good enough that they are going to keep an eye on it and go ahead and proceed with tonight's launch plan. Now, as we've been mentioning, I had a chance to go out there to Kennedy Space Center earlier in the week. It was a part of what's called NASA Social. It's something that anyone can apply for. They choose about...
SpaceX Dragon crew is ready for side hatch portion.
Wait for the confirmation now.
SpaceX copies.
And there it is. NASA Social is something anyone can apply for, regardless of how big your social media following is. If you have an account where you'd like to talk about space, you're eligible for a future NASA Social. Follow NASA, follow Kennedy, follow Wallops on Twitter, on Facebook, and keep an eye out for when the next time they call for participants. They did take us out there, and we spent 2.5 days at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And to begin our look back at on-location reports, let's get a lay of the land on where those 4 astronauts and their Falcon 9 rocket is by taking a look at what Launch Complex 39A is all about. Out here at Launch Complex 39A, SpaceX has built its own vehicle assembly building. They no longer utilize the crawler path all the way out here to the launch complex from NASA's vehicle assembly building. They'll use that structure behind us to construct the Falcon 9 rocket with the Dragon capsule on it first horizontally. They'll pull it out and then turn it vertical, which is different than how NASA does it, where they put everything vertically together in the VAB, and then they'll bring it out to the launch complex behind us. That launch complex, you can see, is protected by a lightning rod that is atop the complex, helps protect the vehicle from any of those pesky Florida thunderstorms. The vehicle itself right now is still on the launch complex behind us, but just slightly out of view because it's actually being held up right now by an arm that will move out of way in time to carry Crew-6 safely up to space. Also out here at the launch complex will be home to SpaceX's Starship. That's the separate tower that is still under construction here behind us. So, Jared, that's a look at what Launch Complex 39A looks like. It's been taken over by SpaceX, one of NASA's private company partners. As you know, since you were last there in 2011 for the last space shuttle launch, NASA is moving slowly into this cooperative with private partners, SpaceX among them, Blue Origin, to name some others, where we are seeing more and more private companies launching now from what was at one point all military operations. Still a lot of publicly funded launches, still a lot of publicly funded research, but SpaceX, one of the biggest names now out there at Cape Canaveral.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's funny too. It kind of mirrors what we've got going in the weather enterprise, if you think about it.
Sure.
There's a really tight public-private partnership. I mean, we're the private side of that partnership with the public side with the National Weather Service, for example. That is something that has worked very well. Honestly, a model for cooperation between public and private. So it's really interesting to see this now start to apply to space. Save the taxpayer dollars for the fun stuff, which is exploration, going to Mars, things like that, and let the commercial companies do the more routine low Earth orbit, servicing the space station, things like that. It's been really good.
I think the way NASA frames it is allows them to focus.
Mhm.
Allows them to focus on long-term trips to the moon and on to Mars. And I kind of joke that when we went out there, we were invited on behalf of NASA Kennedy Space Center to partake in witnessing this Crew-6 launch. And it was a lot of like, we're really excited for Crew-6, but Artemis. was like the headline of every meeting we went into, and you'll get to see that in some of our broadcasts tonight. If you weren't with us on Sunday night, we're going to go back. We're going to go inside the vehicle assembly building. We're going to talk to the director of the Kennedy Space Center, and we're going to start to get an insight into what this upcoming trip to the moon is really all about.
Yeah, it was a, you know, James, I mean, you got to see just some incredibly wonderful things when you were out there at the Space Center, and it's going to be fun. You know, I think you know, again, we're gonna see, you know, a lot of just really cool stuff. I mean, you got to see the vehicle assembly building, you got to see the plant lab. I think the other thing too, you know, you were talking about, this is great, but Artemis, this is a step towards more
Dragon,
Artemis.
SpaceX closeout team is taking final steps in prep for side hatch closure. Stand by for transition to pad hatch closed. And please ensure that all items are secure from now through launch.
Yeah, hey, there you go.
I don't think that was a joke, but it came across as one because of the way he paused. It's like he was gonna make a flight attendant joke.
I mean, you got to have some fun with this. I mean, this is what, the fourth time they've gone through with this at this point.
At least third.
Yeah, at least third. So they're inspecting the hatch right now, and so we'll, you know, we're showing this here. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my spotlight off, and so we'll you know, be able to give them the full kind of run of the screen here. This is always a good way to do this. And you can see they're inspecting that hatch. They're making sure that, you know, that it's going to close properly. Obviously, that's a pretty important part of all of this, is, you know, making sure that everything is sealed and secure, and that, you know, there's no foreign objects in there. So yes, this is a meticulous process. They went through it Sunday night, early Monday morning, and they're going to go through it again tonight. And they're going to go down that same checklist. They're just going to bang down that same checklist. So that's
yeah, and it's going to take time too. It's not going to be done quickly, which is why we have all of these lovely pieces of video today.
Yeah, exactly. So so we do have a question. You know, who was on board? I think that's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And
so the pilot, his name is Woody Hoberg. He is an American astronaut from NASA, and the commander is Steve Bowen. So Jared, why don't we actually use that as an opportunity to mix up our rundown a little bit, and we'll get to know Steve Bowen first. He's the commander of this crew mission, the 6th crew mission. Although really technically, although it's called Crew-6, technically the 7th crewed mission that NASA and SpaceX have done together, if you include the Demo 2 test flight. So to get to know Steve Bowen a little bit better, NASA has provided us with a brief look at his career and his biography, and here it is.
The greatest things we accomplish as human beings, we do as teams. My name is Steve Bowen. I am the spacecraft commander of NASA's SpaceX Crew-6 mission to the International Space Station. I was born in Cohasset, Massachusetts. It's a small town on the coast just south of Boston. I had 5 brothers and sisters. I was the 5th of 6, and it was really sort of an idyllic childhood. When I was getting ready to choose, you know, where applying for colleges, I had the good enough grades, and I got an appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy, so I studied electrical engineering. I'd done a summer cruise, and the reason I ended up doing the summer cruise on submarines was because the ideas interested me. The whole concept of running a nuclear power plant underwater and operating at sea. And so after graduation, I spent 14 years in the submarine force before I applied to become an astronaut. I never had, grand plans of growing up and becoming an astronaut, but I never did anything to preclude that either, based on how I managed to get here. It was just curiosity and enthusiasm. I remember on STS-132, I think it was on my first spacewalk on that mission, and there I was overlooking the International Space Station as we're circling the Earth. The whole world spread out below me. And all I could think of is, what kind of civilization is this? I grew up carrying buckets of cement, and here I am on top of the International Space Station circling the Earth as we're doing research, really to make the world a better place. And we're doing it as a team. We're doing it as an international team. It was eye-opening. I mean, it's not something I didn't necessarily understand, but it really becomes obvious in a moment like that. And that was absolutely amazing to me. I view myself really as a rookie for the International Space Station because I was always there basically as a construction worker. This time I'm actually getting the opportunity to operate and to be a part of the science and be a part of the ISS operations. That's all new to me, and I'm really looking forward to being a part of all of that. And hopefully my bit of spaceflight experience that I've brought along with me, I can help everybody else settle in and step into these operations. I have a most amazing crew. I'll say this for all three of my crew members because they're actually all pretty amazing individuals. They each have distinct personalities that add so much to the crew. That ability to function as a group is absolutely amazing. And when you accomplish something as a team, there is no greater feeling.
So that is Woody Hoberg. He's a NASA astronaut and the commander of this Crew-6 mission. You can see here on our live look, we still have the capsule door open. That's not too alarming at this point. Again, this is a long process. Before astronauts are inside, the ninjas are working to secure it on up. So we'll take the opportunity to follow up on our question and continue down our rabbit hole of getting to know our astronauts. This is Steve Bowen. He's the commander. No, I'm sorry, we just did Steve.
We just did Steve.
Let's do Woody Hoberg. He's the pilot.
Yeah.
The funny thing about the pilot is if everything goes according to plan, not to take any respect or responsibility away from the pilot, if everything goes according to plan, this should, like a Tesla, fly on automation. So the pilot is there. He's well trained in case of emergency, in case he needs to step in to override something. But if the automation does what it's supposed to do, well, there you go. Anyway.
Best gig on the ship?
I mean, until something goes wrong and then all's in your hand.
Well, it's like being a backup quarterback in the NFL. It's like you're paid very handsomely to sit there. And if something happens to the primary quarterback, then you go in and play a little bit. And then that's it. I
think I would want a really good pilot. I think I'd want a really good driver, even if I was in an autonomous car. Anyway, Here's Woody Hoberg.
As a kid, I always loved things that fly. I was always attracted to airplanes and rockets, just loved space, and I was just always attracted to the mystery of what's beyond. My name is Woody Hoberg, and I'm the pilot for NASA's Crew-6 mission to the International Space Station. I grew up north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was lucky to go to a wonderful public school called North Allegheny High School. Participated in a lot of winter sports, so I enjoyed growing up in the cold. I think my first dream was to be a ski patroller, and not long after that, I decided I wanted to be an astronaut. I think I was always, even as a kid, attracted to technical things and also to problem solving. I got deeply involved with something called the Tripoli Rocketry Association and started building my own large-scale amateur rockets. The largest one I built was 21 feet tall, 16 inches in diameter. It weighed well over 100 pounds. The hard part is getting it back in one piece. I was sewing my own parachutes on my mom's sewing machine, so there were some additional features that I built into these things. Since college, I've been very active as a rock climber, and so in grad school, I wanted to kind of take that to the next level, and I had a desire to maybe serve more, and so I became an EMT, became a member of Yosemite Search and Rescue. So I was spending most of the year at Berkeley working on my PhD. But then in the summers, I was stationed in Yosemite National Park. And then I ultimately went to MIT as a young faculty member and led a research group studying convex optimization for engineering design. I would probably still be there, except that I got selected to come to NASA and be an astronaut. I got a call from Chris Cassidy. He told me the incredible news that they wanted me to come down to Houston and start training. I could not believe the words I was hearing. It was surreal. I knew that eventually I might have an opportunity to actually fly a mission. And so getting the phone call, realizing that process was starting, was a really special day for me, one that I will never forget. We have an absolutely amazing crew. I couldn't be happier with all three of my crewmates. I'm just so excited to spend time living and working in space with them and do this mission together. We've enjoyed training together both at NASA and our trips out to Hawthorne to train with SpaceX. It feels like we really are gelled and we're ready to execute the mission. I'm excited to carry on a small piece of the more than 22-year history of continuous human presence aboard ISS. It's quite surreal now, having actually achieved that childhood dream and being ready to embark on my mission to actually fly in space.
And there you have it. That's Woody Hoberg, the pilot. While we were watching that, I see we got a comment on YouTube following our conversation about what is a desirable pilot, at least somebody with a steady hand. I agree. Now, just to kind of paint everybody a picture here, the days are gone of cockpits with one joystick, like you're playing MS-DOS. Instead, now it's more like you're driving a Tesla or hanging out with your iPad. They have a lot of touch screens. You might get a glimpse of them with some of the many camera angles that they have inside the Drew capsule. Now, I think I did hear that they do have some backup buttons, because I don't know about you, but in case of emergency, the last thing I would want is a touchscreen.
Yeah.
They do have specialized gloves though, because I don't know if this is I don't know how many people might have these, but as a New Yorker, you kind of start getting winter accessories. So I remember a couple of times my parents got us winter gloves that we were allegedly had like special stitching in the fingertips that you could use touchscreens like phones and things. Kind of work.
Yeah, I've heard of those. I've heard of those, and yeah, and we've seen the gloves. We when we were on last time, we saw the two sets of gloves there. It looked like they had two sets of hands, and it's like,
yeah, the one was almost like the underlying pair of gloves reminded me something of like a curator in a museum might wear.
Yeah,
like handling delicate objects, and then you got the like big astronaut pressurized glove that snaps into the suit.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so we're still watching. You know, we're looking up here in the corner here. We're still watching the ninjas, as we call them. I don't know if that's what they're really called. I don't care. We're gonna call them ninjas here because they look like ninjas. And yeah, it looks like they are closing the hatch right now. So they are shutting the door.
Please stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Yep. So they are shutting the door, and that's sounds like everything checked out inside. What's going to happen after this is there's going to then be comms checks. There's be a lot of like systems checks, pressurization checks, things like that. Again, there's a checklist. There's pre-flight that you got to do.
Yeah, there was an EMT professional, a medical professional on our NASA Social Bus. And during tonight's broadcast, you can see some clips of a Q&A panel we got to do, the NASA Social attendees asking questions of NASA officials. And he asked a question about the importance of checklists and how critical it was. And they talked about how even the smartest person is still human. So if you're doing something, you get distracted, you come back and you've accidentally skipped a step, you don't want to do that. And that's why you're going to hear them. They're going to call out 5.1, 5.2, 5.3.
Lots of decimals. Lots of different
decimals.
Lots of different decimals.
Like a checklist with sub checklists with sub checklists.
Yep. There's just a lot to do. And you know that's as we might call launching a rocket routine. It's not. There's nothing routine about this.
No, and that's what's interesting about it. You know, my grandmother was telling me the other day that she tried to stay up late on Sunday night to watch it, and she goes, I just couldn't find it anywhere on television. And I said, I know. Isn't that a shame?
Yeah.
It becomes so routine.
Yeah.
Days are gone where the broadcast networks or the cable networks would carry it live. I'm a media professional during the day, and I'm saying that. So here we are. Hey,
No.
but WCNC Plus viewers will join us at 11:32 p.m. Eastern time tonight. So
Yes, they
there's
will.
that.
Yes, they will. They absolutely will. So watching them, they're going through their checklist now. They're just checking the list, checking it twice.
Can you take it full? I think he's using a stylus.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and he was doing this last time too. Let me get these spotlights off real quick. And yeah, he did this last time. He had the stylus there. So again, got special tablets. He's going through the checks. Let's see if we can hear anything. See if we can listen in.
I was trying to think of a crossword puzzle joke.
Dragon SpaceX com check over ground station.
SpaceX Dragon, have you loud and clear over the ground station?
Core has you loud and clear. Ground station com check is complete. Stand by for TDRS com check.
As we stand by, we're counting down to a 12:34 a.m. Eastern time launch, which is approximately 2 hours and 5 minutes from now.
It's like
Just
we're
like
NASA. It's like we're NASA C-SPAN.
Ooh, I'd be okay with that.
Mhm.
Just like with checklists, there's also lots of redundancies. So you're going to hear lots of different audio channels. We're not going to necessarily listen to all of them. We're going to listen to a couple of them before we go down to our next package, which will take you inside the vehicle assembly building. But we'll hang out for a moment and see what else we get to hear. You can see the ninjas still standing by in case they need to head back in there for any particular reason. It looks like they have a voltage meter hooked up to the door. And if I could, my father's probably watching
Dragon
right now.
SpaceX com check.
And he will appreciate this. If I could find anything in my garage, I would hold up a voltage meter.
SpaceX Dragon, have you loud and clear?
Core loud and clear. TDRS com check is complete. Stand by for com checks with DC, MD, and LD in the launch configuration.
Dragon DC on countdown 1, com check.
DC Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1?
DC loud and clear. Stand by for com checks with MD.
MD is mission director.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1, com check.
MD Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1?
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for com check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, MD on Dragon to ground, com check.
MD Dragon, have you loud and clear over Dragon to ground?
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for com checks with LD.
Dragon LD on countdown 1, com check.
LD Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1?
LD loud and clear. Stand by for com check over Dragon to ground. Dragon LD on Dragon to ground, com check.
LD Dragon, have you loud and clear over Dragon to ground?
LD loud and clear.
Dragon SpaceX launch configuration com checks are now complete.
LD is launch director.
SpaceX Dragon copy.
So they can talk. That's good.
That is good. They've got a launch director in Kennedy.
Mhm.
They've got mission folks in Houston. They've got mission folks at SpaceX out in California. I think this time on Sunday night, I made a joke about working remotely with people all across the country. If they could do it, so can you.
I have some exciting news.
Yes.
They put the all right. So if you were watching us last week, there was a major severe weather outbreak on Progress in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And so they had to put the satellite 1 minute view on those storms, which makes sense, right? I mean, that's
1 minute view is a very often, very quick, very hyper-focused imagery for a satellite.
Yes. And what's great is that what's so great is that tonight we have one.
What's great about being in the potential for severe weather means we
Well,
also get to look at it.
Well, in this particular case, they have the let's see here. So they have a mesosector. Looks like mesoscale sector 1 is going to be over Florida.
Dragon SpaceX commencing health check for launch escape system. Expect momentary flight computer state change, followed by transition back to pad hatch closed.
It's going to be 30 seconds.
Dragon will be watching, thank you.
So they're going to have it. So they combine the mesoscale. What you can do with the satellites is that you can combine the mesoscale sectors, and so you'll get an image every 30 seconds. So what's really cool is that you can detect these rocket launches on the GO satellites. And there is a new RGB. So one of the really cool things about one of the new GO satellites is that they have so many different channels, very multispectral channels, and you can combine those channels, those various different, there's like 3 channels of water vapor, there's several channels of infrared, there's there's visible if this is during the day, but you can combine those into a red, green, blue product, an RGB product. And there is, these can tell you a variety of things. Some of the RGBs you might have seen here, like nighttime microphysics. We do that one a lot at the, obviously at night for like finding fog, low clouds, things like that. That's a really good one. A really common example of an RGB is just the true color view. It looks like the Earth, it looks like what you would expect a satellite image to look like. It's actually a bunch of different channels coming together and reassembling that image on, local computing. There is a new one.
The analogy I'm coming up with is for people who used to use Polaroid. Sometimes when the chemicals would get weird and only like 1 dye or 2 dye would process, and you end up with like a pink tint, a blue tint.
Yep. That's a really great way to put it, because
I try.
That's a good one, because we are going to we're going to see satellite updates every 30 seconds around the launch time. And I'll be able to check that with something called the Plume RGB. And this was developed by satellite researchers who work to get things into National Weather Service operations, guys at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. They recently published the recipe for the Plume RGB. So I implemented my AWIPS over here. And so what I'm hoping I can do is hopefully I can get a capture of that, and I'll share that with you guys after it goes.
Well, think about it. They didn't need it on Sunday night. The weather was beautiful. There was an outbreak elsewhere in the country. NASA was probably like, keep it out over there. Or they weren't even granted the option. But tonight,
I don't think they were granted the option.
The threat's more in the southeast. And they have a watch potential that there could be a weather issue. Most likely not at the Cape at the launch, but during that ascent. They're going to take off from Florida. And you don't just go straight up to space like an elevator, like a plane on a really long ascent. They're going to go out over the ocean and around the world. They're going to go around the world, folks, for 24 hours before they get to that International Space Station.
Yep. So anyway, this excites me greatly.
I know. I was watching you and I was thinking, is this what it was like to watch me the other day? Speaking of things that were really exciting. So during the NASA social on Friday, we got to go inside the vehicle assembly building. The vehicle assembly building is not used for the SpaceX launches, but it was used for Apollo, it was used for the shuttles, and is used for the Artemis. They take all the pieces and like a big jigsaw puzzle, they put them together in
Dragon SpaceX, good side hatch leak check.
In this bigger than life building. It is
SpaceX Dragon copies.
And so while they continue comm checks, let's take you inside the vehicle assembly building and get to know what's inside the VAB.
I'm a public affairs specialist here focusing on the Artemis program. I hope you have all heard about Artemis already, but this is NASA's plan to send humans back to the moon. So this is the building where we stacked the Artemis 1 moon rocket and where we'll stack the coming Artemis missions, but this is also the building where all the Saturn V's for the Apollo program and all 135 space shuttles were stacked in here. So some people refer to this building as the Space Cathedral because there's a lot of history in here. So originally constructed to support the Apollo program in the early 60s. So like if you look here, you see those orange platforms. So those were used for the Apollo program. This is kind of their testing and checkout cells, right? So before you stack all the pieces on top of each other, you want to make sure that they're all going to fit together and they're all ready for launch. So where we're standing right now, we call the transfer aisle. So as those pieces come in, they're usually wheeled down this aisle or into our high bays. So right now we're standing in the low bay of the building. You probably can't tell because it looks pretty tall. But as we go about halfway down the aisle to the high bays, you're going to be looking about 500 feet straight up. And if you saw the side of the building, those are those big gray doors. So those are where the rocket rolls out of. So right now we're using high bay 3. We'll get a good look at it once we get down the transfer aisle. But that's where they're stacking the Artemis moon rocket right now. You probably see that big yellow crane there. So that's one of 5 overhead cranes that we have in this building. So this is what we call the low bay crane. And then once we walk to the high bays, you'll be able to see the other ones. But again, that's what we use to stack all the rockets together. That is a very, very specialized job. Number one, you definitely cannot be afraid of heights. You can kind of see that crane cab. It has windows angled down, so you're looking straight at the floor. But that team gets up there. There's a team on the ground that's making sure that they hook everything up correctly. And then they take the pieces, lift them for SLS and Artemis about 200 feet up in the air, up and over and down, and they just keep doing that process until that rocket's fully stacked.
What are hurricanes like inside this building?
Yes. So essentially, all the doors, I mean, they're mostly closed right now, but they kind of, close up the building nice and snug, and yeah, this building is prepared to take on hurricanes. So here's 2 of our high bays. This one right across from us was used for space shuttle. So you can see the orange platforms in there and the gray. We can't see it, but in this gray box over here, that's where the access point into the shuttle was. So if they needed to, put payloads in there or put people in there to get everything configured for the astronauts, that was kind of their access point for shuttle.
We are inside the Vehicle Assembly Building. It is the most recognizable structure on the Kennedy Space Center grounds, and it has been home to Apollo, to the shuttle, and now to Artemis. So this is, the boosters are 5 segments tall. For Space Shuttle, they were 4 of these segments. So this is the bottom segment, and actually the entire weight of the rocket is stacked on these solid rocket boosters. So they're the first part of the rocket that gets stacked before they put the big orange core stage in between them. And you can kind of see in there, some of the platforms are extended in the high bay. So those platforms go in and out. Imagine giant hydraulic kitchen drawers. That's essentially what those platforms are. And those are the access points for the workers to get to the rocket. One of these fully stacked is about 20 feet shorter than the Falcon 9 rocket. So when you guys drive out and see the Falcon 9, you can kind of think about that. Right. It's about the same width and height as a Falcon 9 is. And so you got 2 of those, plus the core stage, plus the upper stage. So it's hard to visualize it, but it's a pretty big rocket.
The Vehicle Assembly Building is a really cool place. I had a suspicion they might take us there, or at least to the outside, but I tried not to set any expectations, Jared. Did you get a chance to go inside the Vehicle Assembly Building?
Yes, I did.
That thing's like a cathedral.
It truly is a cathedral to spaceflight.
Did they have, I don't know if they did. So they have a wall where the shuttle astronauts all signed.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that in 2011?
Yep.
Okay. Because I was a little confused on the verbiage and I should have asked for clarification because I thought they said after the shuttle program, everyone came and signed the wall. But I thought if it's anything like SpaceX and the crew missions, they actually signed the wall just outside the Dragon capsule here at the end of the crew arm before they. Now, I don't know if they did it tonight because they technically signed it on Sunday. So that's probably why we didn't see it tonight.
Yeah, that would
I don't think you signed it twice.
No, if you signed it twice, chances are good the whole wall would be covered at this point.
Right.
Right.
Day 47, we're still here.
Yeah, as many scrubs as there are, Oh, that's what we got to do. We got to play no scrubs. I maybe we need to license no scrubs by TLC.
Yeah, that sounds expensive.
It does sound expensive, but I mean that needs to be our mentality tonight. No scrubs because we
got. Do you remember during the NASA Wallops launch from like 2 years ago? It was scrub after scrub after scrub to the point where like each night I was holding up a different box set of scrubs to show.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, Artemis is basically the same way. I mean, goodness gracious, they couldn't get
Artemis,
that one off the
and
ground.
we got into it a little bit there in that last story. Every time they announced a launch day for Artemis, a hurricane showed up. First Ian and then Nicole.
Yeah, I mean, the Artemis, it was a miracle it got out there, but it did. It got up and it did great.
If I recall correctly, it rode out Ian in the VAB and Nicole outside, or the other way around?
No, Ian was in the VAB. Nicole was outside.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Nicole was on the pad.
Yeah, that was a little hairy.
To put it mildly, they got very lucky with that.
And I'm not standing at NASA. I can question things like that.
Yeah.
Was that the right call?
Yep. Here's a really cool question.
Sure.
What is the fully assembled height? I wonder.
Of the Falcon?
Let's start there and then maybe compare that to Artemis, because Artemis is a much bigger boy. The SLS is a much bigger boy.
Okay. So a Crew Dragon on a Falcon is 215 feet or 65 meters. And that would be about half the height of the VAB, because the VAB is 500 something another.
Yeah. And remember, SpaceX has its own VAB. I mean, we kind of touched this at the top of the show. Their VAB is literally right next to the launch pad. They don't need a crawler. They just basically pick it up and move it over there.
Correct. And the vehicle assembly building can almost be called the vertical assembly building, because NASA actually builds them vertically, whereas SpaceX actually builds them horizontally and then tows it out and then flips it up. Artemis, the SLS, is 212 feet tall. So again, about half the height of the VAB, but pretty similar in height to the Falcon 9. Now, I think this was in the story, or it didn't make the story and it's in my brain, but when they designed the vehicle assembly building, again, decades ago, they actually took the steel rods, the support beams, all the way up to the roof. So if in the future we had taller vehicles, they can actually take the roof off, and the support is already there to keep building upward to make it even taller.
I think Saturn V is probably going to be the pinnacle of that.
How tall was the Saturn V?
I mean, it was the big boy. I mean, that was the biggest one of them all. I don't know.
I'm Google's your best friend. 363 feet tall.
Yeah. It's a big rocket.
And for context, we went to the 16th floor, which was about 200 and something feet up.
Yeah.
Not the place to go if you're afraid of heights.
No.
Yeah.
Certainly not. Let's see.
While we were in that story, they discussed doing one more repeated ground check, comm check. Now, I don't know if they've actually done it yet. They said to stand by for it. I haven't heard it yet. I wasn't too suspicious by it.
Yeah, I haven't heard it yet either. I don't know. Well, we'll find out.
Don't know. Now, if you're afraid of heights and you like slow moving things, then the crawler might be the job for you. Because after they get these vehicles assembled in the vertically assembled building, again, this is NASA. After NASA gets things assembled in the vehicle assembly building, they have to go and get them out to Launch Pad 39B that NASA still uses, and they put it on this very heavy, very slow, very mechanical thing called the crawler.
Well, anyway, this is crawler 2. There's 2 crawlers. There's one on the other side, which was obviously crawler 1, and they were built for the Apollo program. And this one was the second one built. It was built in 1966. The company who built it was a mining company, Marion Power and Shoal. They actually pretty much assembled it in Ohio and then brought it down here and then reconstructed it. It's 130 by 115. It weighs 6.6 million pounds. How much fuel? It can hold 5,000 gallons. There's 2 2,500 gallon tanks, one on each end. To run the crawler, say like on a rollout operation, it takes about 18 to 20 people. Okay, and that's including technicians on the ground and in the pump room and in the engine rooms. And we usually have about 6 to 7 engineers that operate, and we all usually take about 2 to 3 hour shifts and rotate. So each position has its own cert, and of course you have to pass a test and do an OJT in order to gain that position. Okay, so this is one of 2 cabs. This is cab 1. And if you will reach right down there and lift that little lid and flip that switch.
This?
Yep. That'll light up your panel.
Oh, wow.
And so this is of course is one cab. Everything in this cab, it's all fly-by-wire. It's all connected to the PLC, programmable logic controller. So everything's computer driven.
Was it always computer driven even back in the 60s or?
Nope, it was all relays.
Wow.
Back in the 60s, there was a lot of mechanical. The cab has changed quite a bit from Apollo to now. On Apollo, there were actually 2 consoles, and you actually steered it like they used a jet fighter controller.
Oh.
To steer it back and forth. And then forward and backwards was actually a mechanical arm where you pulled it back for reverse, pushed it forward for forward, and put it in neutral.
And we got a chance to peek inside the engine room too, and it reminded me a lot of, if you've ever been on a field trip or a trip to like a battleship, very mechanical, lots of metal, lots of engines. Gave me those low clearance vibes of sucking through a corridor.
Kind of like it. Yeah, it remind. I suspect. I mean, I did not get to go into the crawler in the engine room. That's pretty cool. But I suspect that it was a lot like, kind of walking around like for example, like the USS Yorktown around here. Very, very, you don't think of how tight quarters that is, but yeah, it's pretty tight. And there are no pictures in the crawler.
There are no pictures inside the crawler.
Yep. Yeah, kind of G-14 classified. So we're still waiting on this
for my eyes
check.
only.
Yeah, for your eyes only. Exactly.
I think we are still waiting on this other comm check.
Yeah, they're just kind of just sitting there stretching out.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. See, astronauts are just like us.
They're on their backs right now. Doesn't look like it.
Yeah. And yeah, they're on their backs, and they've been on their backs. They're going to be on their backs for at least another couple hours. I mean, this is like the pre-flight stage. I mean, this takes some time.
Now at 10:13, NASA did say comm checks completed, but I think this was before.
Yeah,
they said they wanted to retest something.
I think they wanted SpaceX to retest something, as I recall. Yeah,
it was a ground system check.
Yeah,
unless they just did it and they forgot to beam it out to the rest of us. I don't know.
Which is fine. I mean, whatever floats their boat. But
I wasn't too concerned about it anyway. Maybe I should be.
Yeah. No, I think we'll be fine. As long as it's not the ignition fluid. So again, if you're joining us from, if you couldn't make it up, if you couldn't stay up, and you've heard, oh, the launch scrub, why did it scrub? Well, there was an issue with 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, this was earlier in the week.
This is earlier in the week. There's an issue with 2 minutes to go, where basically, if you were listening to the stream, it was called a TT system, and that is and it sounds hilarious, but
you don't want to try to say the full word. You just want to stick to the abbreviation.
No, we're not going to try and say the full word. The full word is I do pretty good with pronunciations, but I'm just not that good. But think of it as the ignition fluid. And they could not get the ignition fluid. They had a problem with the ground system to inject the ignition fluid into the rocket.
I had somebody at work today ask me, so what went wrong? And I said, when you get in your car and you turn the key and it just goes click, 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 click. It was like that.
Yeah, or like you're trying to start your you're trying to start your gas grill and just
those were perfect every time. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know.
Never had a problem with that. Maybe almost nearly blown off my beard and eyebrows.
Yeah, maybe I'm the one who's only had problems with it. So I live to grill another day. But
I had hair before I tried to light a grill.
Oh, that makes sense now. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
got it.
Exactly. So
got it. Okay, so that's where it went. But yeah, it's just, it kind of underscores just how right everything has to go to get one of these out the door. And
there's no hold times allowed with this. They're either going at 12:34 a.m. or they're not going at all. However, they do leave
Dragon
themselves buffer.
SpaceX for repeated comm check over ground station.
There it is. That's
Dragon, go ahead.
Just confirming good comm over our new ground station setup. Sounds like we have a good two-way comm.
SpaceX Dragon, I have you loud and clear.
That was the delay, so they were actually setting something up.
Oh,
all right, core loud and clear. We will reconfigure comm back to the launch configuration. and step into Falcon 9 operator comm checks.
Because if there's
Dragon copy.
because if there's a great time to improvise something new, it is 2 hours before the launch.
Anybody here old enough to remember dial-up internet? So when dial-up internet came out, we used the phone line in the house. We only had one phone line. And I used to have to unplug the phone in my parents' bedroom and then take like a 30-foot long phone cable and like run it down the hall to the computer. That's what I'm picturing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, we don't have the exact time, but that definitely ate up some of that extra pad.
Probably a little bit, but I think they'll be okay. I mean, again, it's 10:53 right now. Here in the Eastern time zone, they're going to go at 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Makes that very easy to remember. So,
it's a good time to catch a nap. I'm looking at you, astronaut on the left. Go ahead, make it full.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't blame him.
I don't blame him either. No, he's about to have his world rocked.
I think, I don't know that he's asleep, but I do think his eyes are closed. I can't see the other gentleman, but I think it's a perfect time for a cat nap, and I don't mean that sarcastically. They have done this now several nights.
Dragon SpaceX, confirm when ready for comm checks with Falcon 9 operators.
Yeah, he's there.
He's there. Yeah, he's just chilling, He's got to do a comm check. He'll do a comm check, but yeah, he's chilling. And I don't blame him. He's got a pretty. You're not going to be able to sleep through the ride. Let's just put it that way.
Nope.
Not through this one.
This is not the love tunnel at the
This is
park.
CE on countdown 1, initiating responsible engineer comm checks for Falcon. GNC's up first.
Let's take a listen.
Dragon, GNC on countdown 1, comm check.
GNC Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1?
GNC, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by the propulsion engineer.
Dragon, prop on countdown 1, comm check.
Prop Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
Prop loud and clear. Stand by for comm check with the avionics engineer.
Dragon, avionics on countdown 1, comm check.
Avionics Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
Avionics loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by the ground segment engineer.
Dragon, ground segment, countdown 1, comm check.
Ground segment Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
Ground segment, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by launch control.
Dragon, launch control on countdown 1, comm check.
Launch control Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
Launch control, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by the chief engineer.
Dragon, CE on countdown 1, comm check.
CE Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
CE, loud and clear. This completes the F9 responsible engineer comm checks.
Dragon SpaceX, the closeout team has departed the crew arm.
SpaceX Dragon copy.
So I think we're getting back to the waiting game a little bit. Let's listen a little bit more. All right. So the responsible engineer ground comm checks again. We got to talk to everybody, make sure all that is working. That's all been complete. The closeout crew, they've left the crew arm. See that, the arm that connects to the capsule, the Dragon capsule, which will take these 4 astronauts up. And and so, again, it's a lot of waiting. There's a lot of work to do to get a rocket out there. And so yeah, that's gonna be ongoing. Bring James back into the conversation here. James, they just completed their most of their comm checks. It looks like that's all pretty well nailed down at this point. So at this point
Good.
now, it's getting the other systems checks ready to go. When we start to see this thing get fueled up, you'll know that rocket will start to have a bunch of steam around it. Again, that liquid propellant is very,
Dragon SpaceX, report when ready for post-ingress crew briefing.
Okay, we'll hang here.
Yeah.
We do have more exciting video clips to share with you from our trip to Kennedy, but we'll
SpaceX
hang here.
Dragon, we are ready for the post-ingress crew briefing.
We're just going to
All
take a
right.
listen.
The only update I have from a previous briefing was that we have completed those hydraulic checkouts and everything is now performing nominally. We are tracking no issues on Dragon or Falcon at this time, and we have no changes to the pre-briefed weather and remain go for launch. I'll copy.
SpaceX Dragon copy. That's all good news. Thank you.
We'd like
I
to
don't know
hear.
if the hydraulic thing is related to the fuel issue from the other day or not. That was just a very specific reference.
It's probably a reference from a briefing that we weren't privy to, if I had to guess. It's interesting they talk about the weather too, and again, we kind of alluded to this a bit at the beginning here. We've since had, been going back through the latest forecasts from the 45th Weather Squadron from Patrick Space Force. And still getting used to the Space Force thing.
So was I, and I was there.
Yeah.
Tried doing it to their face.
Yeah. I mean, we're still getting used to that. But the 45th Weather Squadron used to be in the Air Force, now Space Force. Still, I guess, technically in the Department of the Air Force. If we're going to go through military bureaucracy.
I don't know that it is. I'm pretty sure it's its own branch there, Jared.
No, it's part of the Department of the Air Force. Yeah. It's on the seal. Yeah.
Okay.
It's underneath the Starfleet logo. But anyway, weather-wise, tonight is probably when they're going to need to do it. Tomorrow, if there's a 24-hour delay, the meteorologists there give the launch goes from a 5% chance of violating the weather constraints, which again, you've got to be there's a lot of weather constraints on launching a rocket.
Yep.
We go from 5% to 30%. And then if we wait another day, it goes to 40% chance of violating that. So if they're going to, their best opportunity to go is now, because again, if you've been here since 9 o'clock, we were talking about a couple cold fronts getting close here.
They've all been here since 9 o'clock. Every single one of them.
Absolutely
dedicated.
Yeah, very dedicated folks. Thank you. and so there's going to be some adverse weather moving in here that ridge is going to give a little bit. And particularly with the winds, Friday, Thursday, Friday in particular, the winds are going to start to kick up. We were talking about, wind advisory levels here in the Carolinas, and that looks to be something similar here. But yeah, if we go 48 hours, they may be launching into showers, and that's no good. You can't do that.
I can actually replace my video feed, Jared, with the SPC Outlook. So if you're joining us tonight on this Wednesday night, you can see we have a tier 1 marginal risk for storms, largely with a chance of hail in the Carolinas. More of a severe weather outbreak closer to portions of Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama. And then as we move into tomorrow, you can see then another outbreak, again off to the left, off to the west side of your screen. And then day 3, another big bullseye over the southeast for the chance of severe storms. And that's just what we have over here on the ground in the southeast. So they also have to worry about everything that is in the air going around the globe during their ascent.
I mean, even cumulus clouds pose a risk to the spacecraft because you could spark lightning. It's happened.
Yeah, well, we talked about at the very beginning of our tour of the launch complex, how they have the big lightning rod out there to try to catch any lightning. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a little past 11 o'clock. I'm James Brierton, Charlotte, North Carolina. That's Jared Smith in Charleston. You're watching special continuing coverage of the NASA SpaceX Crew-6 launch right here on the Carolina Weather Group, a weekly weather show discussing weather, science, technology, and more from the Carolinas and beyond. We started our broadcast tonight at 9 o'clock with our weekly show. We were talking about space. We were talking about severe weather, and we're continuing into bonus hours tonight as we are counting down the second launch attempt of the Crew-6 mission. 4 astronauts headed to the International Space Station for a 6-month stay. Well, they will be conducting science that one day will hopefully take us to the moon, to Mars, and beyond. We're going to take it back out now to Kennedy Space Center. My friend Holly's on the line. Holly is a fellow NASA social participant and a first-time Zoomer, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to do this live, folks. We also got to see what the connectivity is like out there. It's kind of spotty at Kennedy, but let's see. Holly looks to be connected. She's muted at the moment, but Holly and I were amongst the 25 some odd people who are out there riding the bus, and she has the opportunity to be back out there tonight to hopefully get to see this actual launch. Holly, it's James. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can hear me?
A little bit. You're pretty good. We got Jared Smith on the line. You talked with him the other night.
Yeah.
Where are you guys now on the NASA social movements?
So we just made it to the NASA press site here about 10 minutes ago. There's a lot fewer people. We only have 13 participants here tonight compared to what we had on the original night launch. And a lot fewer members of the media as well. So it's actually really sparse for the number of people that are here tonight.
Jared and I were discussing earlier how it's a blessing and a curse how routine some of these launches have become thanks to the success of Shuttle and other programs throughout the year that a lot of us are still really impressed by it, but there is a bit of a scarcity sometimes when it comes to, I was saying that my grandmother tried to watch it on television the other night and couldn't find it. But I guess that's where the NASA social program comes in to kind of liven things up on social media. How's the attitude with the 13 participants still out there tonight?
There's still a lot of excitement in the air. We're trying to hype each other up because it's a little unnerving because the last attempt was scrubbed. So we're not trying to get our hopes up. At the same time, we want this launch to happen. So yeah, for the most part, we're all still pretty excited and still pretty pumped.
Holly, you shared the other night with our watchers and our listeners that you're local to that area. You've had the opportunity to fall in love with space launches and seen a lot of them, but in a way, you kind of got a test run of all your camera layout the other night. Is there anything you're doing differently tonight on attempt 2 than how you had things set up on Sunday night?
Yeah, so a little bit different tonight compared to Sunday night is I'm running 1 less camera. So I'm only running 3 instead of 4 cameras. Reason being is because I wasn't expecting with how fast we'd be getting on to the bus to leave, how really on the ball I needed to be with breakdown of my equipment. And so much smaller area. I got a little bit in trouble last time. I didn't realize that I wasn't supposed to set up one of my cameras with the actual media outlets. So that camera's gone. It stayed at home. And then one thing that I'm not sure how I'm going to work with yet is we have a spotlight on the NASA social side. So I'll spin you guys around so you can see. We have a spotlight.
You may actually need to tap to turn the camera feed on, Holly. So far, we just have audio. There might be a little button
is the camera feed
left.
not on?
Yeah, hang on.
It's not letting me.
All right, all good. So this is a different spotlight than the one I guess I was kind of standing underneath a parking lot light myself the other day.
Yeah, no, now it's actually pointed at the launch.
Oh,
okay. So it's very different this time.
So that's going to change your photography setup a little bit, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, now my primary concern is going to be my long exposures. With having the spotlight, it's going to blow out a lot of my highlights. So I'm not sure how I'm going to fix this situation yet. But I'm going to try and get a little bit of creative here. And if I've got to kind of move my way a little bit towards the grass, I will, without stepping on any toes.
Jared, I don't know if Holly's going to remember this because, as she alluded to, she was very frantically trying to get on the bus. But if I go ahead and start a screen share, you can actually see a little raw video I still have recorded here of Holly trying to get on the bus carrying all of her gear, because you were carrying a lot of stuff, Holly.
I was carrying so much equipment, and there was no way for me to get it all back into the bags how I had it set up. It was so precariously put away.
I can relate. Well, I'm sorry I'm not out there with you guys tonight. It sounds like a lot of us wanted to be there and are watching virtually tonight. You have the opportunity, I suppose, of being local. If this doesn't go off tonight, will you be back for a third attempt?
It really depends. If it's sometime within, before Saturday, absolutely. If it's, sometime next week, then unfortunately, no, I've got other commitments. I will be acting single parent next week as my spouse travels for the military. So if it's by the end of this week, absolutely.
I think we asked you this question the other night, but I want to ask you, if anybody who's watching for the first time tonight, how can people follow you on social and see your wonderful photos that you will definitely be taking of a rocket launching here in the next, hour and 20 minutes?
So primarily I'm on Instagram, a little bit of TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. But my handle on Instagram is holly.michelle, HOLLY.MICHELLE. And everywhere else, I'm at Holly Walter Photography on all the other social media sites. So YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook as well. I'm not as active on Twitter and Facebook yet. It's still kind of a work in progress for me.
Well, I think that's a perfect example of what Jared and I have been trying to get people encouraged to sign up for future NASA socials, because you might have us following one place but not another, or you might be new to a platform, you might be good at one thing where you're really good at still photography. We have other people who might do other things like art, and so it really is open to a lot of people. I know you probably have a lot of equipment you want to get set back up, Holly, and it's good to see you guys back out there tonight. Is there anything else? I wish I was there. I wish I was there is what it really boils down to, but I'm at peace with the fact that I too needed to get back on home. So Holly, is there anything else about tonight you wanted to share with our audience?
No, a lot of the energy is the exact same as it was the night before. One big difference is tonight is be on the lookout for what seems to be like drone shots. We got 16 media outlet photographers that are actually shooting for EAB tonight. So that's the primary difference tonight compared to last night.
Okay, we'll keep a close eye. So far, we've seen a lot of inside of the Dragon where the astronauts are sitting comfortably. We know Aviation did some wonderful shots the other day, and we'll look for more of those shots. Holly, thanks for battling the Wi-Fi and hopping on with us tonight. It's good to hear from you and everyone out there at Kennedy tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Holly. Tell everybody I said hey.
Oh, I will. Don't worry.
Thanks, Holly. Jared, Holly was a blast. She was so full of so much information. We had some very knowledgeable folks from NASA who were obviously touring us around Kennedy, the NASA complexes, even over on the Space Force side. But when one of them wasn't available, we would always turn to Holly and ask her a question to explain something or to help better understand something. So that she was a huge asset.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was really, I think she's still here. I think she's still listening to us. So
I know. So I'm saying nice things.
Yeah, we're absolutely saying nice things, and they're all nice things to say. It was she has some really cool, really cool rocket shots. Again, her handles on most of the major social media platforms at Holly Walter Photography.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Also,
and just,
very generous with her skill set, and I think she talked to you about this a little the other
Yes.
night on how photography in her mind should be like a communal shared knowledge, shared skills. She's learned so much from other photographers, but she was also at the launch complex willing to take pictures of the other participants. We went to the Cape Canaveral lighthouse. She took pictures of people out there. Was not asking us for tips or anything like that, just willing to share her skill set, and that was really wonderful.
yeah, and I'll definitely recommend y'all going back and watching that.
I do have it clipped.
You do have it clipped.
I do have it clipped. If we
Oh.
want more from Holly, if you want to see her hold up cameras and all that jazz, it's in the cloud.
It's in the cloud. Let's our Dragon Boys are just kind of
They're just
chilling.
hanging out.
Yeah. Let's do a little more. Yeah, let's talk to Holly a little bit more about about her camera setup, how she goes about things, her philosophy, and yeah, she's just just take a listen.
Okay, absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
hey, thank you, Holly, so much for joining us. And I've been taking a look at some of your photos here, just off your Twitter, and seems like this is something that you do a good bit. You seem to have an affinity for rockets.
Yeah, from as early as I can remember, I've always been interested in rockets. My parents introduced me to those EST rockets that you could get, the hobbyist stuff. And then, originally being from Washington State, we had some aerospace industry with Boeing, and most recently with Blue Origin. We've got some industry facilities back there, but not quite like what we do here down at, Florida and the Space Coast. So once my family and I got stationed here for the military back in October, so just almost 6 months, I couldn't not get into spaceflight photography and just trying to capture every single rocket launch. I think my first rocket launch that I photographed was, correct me if I'm wrong, USSF 47, the first Falcon Heavy since 2019 that launched back in early November, late October. That was the first one that I saw, and then it was hook, line, and sinker. I've only missed 3 launches since then, either just witnessing it or photographing it. So yeah, no, it's my newest passion, obsession, if you will.
No, that's wonderful. And I've only gotten to see one, and that still just leaves just left a tremendous mark. So talk a little bit about your gear and how do you get these just some amazing rocket shots. I mean, I'm trying to see if I can't cue a few up for our viewers here. But yeah, tell me a little bit about just how how you do it and where you set up some not all of your tricks of the trade, of course. Kind of keep a secret.
Oh no! Sharing my tricks of the trade, that's what helps getting other photographers into it. Because what I found is that so many people and so many other photographers are very secretive, and they hold that very close to the chest, their information. And I found a couple of other photographers that like to share their information. And that's how I learned, is by trial and error, and those that have been willing to share their trade secrets. So some of the equipment that I photograph with, I'm lucky enough to own 3 different cameras in a Sony line. My primary camera is a Sony a7R4. That's the one that I primarily get my telephoto shots that you see up close of the rocket and some of the nebulae from MECO, main engine cutoff, and separation. With that one, I use a 200 to 600 lens and a really heavy cop in post. Some of my long exposure ones are done with a Sony a6500 or a6000. And that one, it really depends on where I'm located in regards to the rocket, its trajectory, and just kind of the foreground that I'm going for and the composition that I'm trying to get. So sometimes it can be with the Sony 10 to 18, which was on a crop sensor body, is equivalent to a 16 to 35, or using an actual 16 to 35 lens, or sometimes I use a 100 to 400 or 24 to 70. It really depends on what kind of image I'm trying to gather and what the conditions are giving me. And half the time, even if I'm trying to go for a wide angle shot and get that nice streak through the atmosphere, the clouds don't want to cooperate. So it doesn't really matter what kind of focal length you're really shooting at when you're only getting maybe 1,000 feet of flight.
Yeah, it's Yeah, I've got one of your photos. I think this you mentioned that this was one of your favorites of 2022 on your Twitter. I believe this is the Falcon 9 launch from December 11th. I think that's what kind of looks like, kind of sort of like looks like you got one coming back. Looks
Yeah.
like that's so cool.
Oh yeah, so that was my besides the Falcon Heavy, that was the first time that I was able to try and capture what's called an RTLS, a return to launch site. So that's when the boosters come back, and instead of landing on one of the drone ships out to sea, or even being just decommissioned and let fall into the ocean and later return, I was able to photograph the return to launch of the booster landing back at the Cape at LZ 1 and 2. That was a learning experience. Reason being is because the settings are so much different for a return to launch site booster landing than it is for just a regular launch. The regular launch, the rocket is only really visible for the first 2.5, maybe 3.5 minutes, depending on its trajectory and atmospheric conditions. For a booster return, that's an 8 to 9 minute long exposure. So you can either try and do that all in within one single image. It's possible. It's really difficult to get those settings right. But for that one, my single exposure didn't want to cooperate, but I had a secondary camera that ran, and that's a 2 image, technically a composite. I did the streak and then the launch, the booster coming back. But yeah, it was my first attempt. So at that time, it was my absolute favorite. Because it's not every day that you get to see the return to launch site boosters coming back.
No, we get to see that occasionally, all the way here in South Carolina. It looks very different for us, and it has to be a certain time of day, and everything there. But no, that's so cool. That's so cool. So is this your first NASA social? I know that you've been seeing a lot of these, but is this your first time right here at the press site?
Yes, this is my first ever NASA social. Before moving here to Space Coast, this kind of stuff wasn't really on my radar. Like, I knew that, we were sending rockets into space with, various payloads and sending people up to the ISS. But, from Washington State, the closest option to view a rocket launch was, from Vandenberg in California. So it was never really on my radar. So since moving here, that's become on my radar. And this is the first NASA social that was open since I've moved down here. So I plan on applying to every single one. I doubt I'll get picked for every single one, but it never hurts to try again. But yeah, it's just, you can feel the gravity of the situation, and the tension is palpable. Everybody's excited, everybody's nervous, especially because this is a crewed mission. There's more, important and precarious cargo on this mission. And this is, besides doing like a Kennedy Space Center, KSC Explorer public has access to, I've never been this close to a rocket for a launch. The closest I've ever been is like 14 miles.
I will tell you from my experience seeing the shuttle. I know the shuttle is a larger vehicle than this, but you are in for a heck of a show. I think you're going to have a fantastic time, and I hope that your camera's on auto so you can enjoy the sight with your own eyes too. I think that's always really important. No, that's fantastic. Or do you have any plans, obviously, to, I can imagine that you're probably going to shoot this one. What are you hoping to get out of it?
So with this one, being as close as we are to the rocket, the longer exposures, getting the full streak into the frame is going to be a lot more of a challenge to capture. So I'm really taking the opportunity to crop in as much as I can. So like right now, I'm as close as I possibly can on this barrier that we have right against the water, using my 200 to 600 cropped in to the equivalent of a 900 millimeter lens. I am trying to get as close to a flame shot with the booster as you can without setting up remote cameras, because unfortunately, as NASA social participants, we don't have access to that. You have to be actually accredited media.
No, that makes sense. I think we've seen some amazing photos from NASA social folks over the years. I'm looking forward to seeing yours. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Absolutely fantastic. You are in for a heck of a show. I am so excited. I'll have one final question. I think, what has been the most surprising part of this experience so far?
For the NASA social,
Yeah.
I tried not to go in with too many expectations because I've seen, once I got selected, I did as much research as I could into what previous NASA social participants have been able to interact and tour and things like that. So I try to keep an open mind, but low expectations. Meeting the number of people has honestly been the one thing that I hold most dear is the variety of people that I've met, the variety of social influence that they have. Not everybody is a large account. We do have some very large creators here for this event. And then we have some like really small creators like myself. I only have on Instagram like 1,300 something followers and newly on Twitter. So it's very small following. But just the diversity that we have here. Some people are space nerds like myself. Some people are new to space flight. And we've all bonded on this experience. That's probably my favorite part, not just, touring the VAB, which not everybody gets to do, or getting to go inside, one of the crawlers, but it's the people that I met is honestly my favorite part of this experience.
Yeah, I'll tell you, 10 years on, 10 plus years on at this point, from my experience, when it was NASA Tweet Up, I still talk to several people from that launch on a regular basis. They become lifelong friends. It is one of the greatest experiences that you'll have, and I hope you get to have a lot more of them. But yeah, any final thoughts? I know that we got a little past midnight here, and you got probably a lot of stuff to get ready to do. But any final thoughts on what you're anything else you're looking forward to, or anything you yeah.
Other than meeting the people that I have through the NASA social program, but also rubbing elbows with accredited media news members. I've already met Eric Kuna. He's a hero because he's one of the ones I've learned learned the most from, as far as like settings, what to look for, tips like hand warmers. It's already I already feel sticky because of the dew and the humidity. And I've got hand warmers on my lenses, and I would not have known to do that if it wasn't for him. So being able to rub elbows with these heroes and these icons in the industry of spaceflight photography it's more than I can comprehend and share.
Team has departed the crew arm.
But yeah, I've already got 2 of my 4 cameras set up. 3 of the 4 are actually on remote triggers. I got them on intervalometers, so they're set on a timer. So I've got the count positions all set up, and then I will be manning my super telephoto and tracking that launch as it goes up. And I'm also able to record while I take photos at the same time.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Holly, I can't wait to see him. This has been fantastic. Have a wonderful time. Have a blast, one would say.
Yes.
Have a blast off. It's going to be a lot of fun. And again, thank you for taking time to talk to us today. Enjoy the ride. God, I wish I was there. I'm so glad James is. I'm so glad James gets to experience this, and that y'all get to experience this. And good luck. And can't wait to see what you got.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to share it. And thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome, Holly.
11:26, 1 hour, 7 minutes until the launch of NASA SpaceX Crew-6 from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Wednesday night, after catching up with Holly here live tonight, Jared, and then taking a look at some of the tape that we recorded the other night, it's really nice to be able to get a touch point from actual people out there at the launch, and an actual touch point with real space enthusiasts. And that's, I think, what the NASA social program is all about.
Absolutely. And, it was great to have, it was great to talk to Holly again tonight, and hopefully you all enjoyed that look into kind of her process and how she goes about this stuff. And again, we really appreciate her openness and willingness to share with us all of her, just how she goes about things. It's pretty cool. I love to hear, good craftsmanship and how people, do their trades. And so that's a really, really cool thing. So
you have any other questions, watching us live here on the Carolina Weather Group YouTube, you can go ahead and put those in the chat. Jared, let's get this in real fast. If you could hit the magic button, I want to let people know they can also support us here at the Carolina Weather Group by supporting us on our new merch store. We've got hats, we got mugs, we got bottles. We know we had a wonderful trip to Kennedy, but it wasn't exactly in our Carolina Weather Group little YouTube budget. So if you're new to the channel, thanks so much. And if you are interested, maybe hit that subscribe button or scan that QR code on your screen. We do have the merch store, which is our new way of allowing people to support what we do here at the Carolina Weather Group. We still have a Patreon, patreon.com/Carolina Weather Group, where you get early access to our weekly Wednesday night show. The merch introduces a whole new aspect of actually getting something tangible that you can hold in your hand. So we appreciate your consideration. And thanks to those who've also left us super thanks and super chats across the network of the Carolina Weather Group here tonight.
Yep. The hat's great. Strongly, yeah, like that's just a really good looking hat and a really good looking logo. I'm just saying. So,
Are you saying because you helped design it?
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I like how in recent years we've put the gap back between North Carolina and South Carolina in our logo versus the older logo where it was like
yeah. I mean, technically, borders. Who needs borders? You don't need borders in space, that's for sure. I mean,
So
if you
true.
look at the diversity of the crew here, how about that for a segue? If you look at the diversity of the crew here, I mean, we got 2 Americans, we got a Russian, and we got somebody from the United Arab Emirates going up on this. And again, nobody, it's just the way it works. You break the bonds of Earth, and you look down at Earth. There's no lines, there's no political lines that you can see or anything like that. We're all one race up there, a human race, and that's kind of cool, we're all one big happy human family up there in space. So yeah, it just kind of this is the fun part of this is watching, is watching everybody get together here. Where we got a ways to go yet. They've still got a lot of things to check. I mean, we're getting to about 11:30. So tell you what's coming. Yeah,
exactly. Go ahead.
We'll tell you what's coming. So at 11:52, the crew access arm, that arm that's been attached to the top of the rocket, that's going to retract. That's going to go away. That's going to get out of the way. At 11:56, they're going to arm the launch escape system. So if something goes south, they will then be able to escape using that escape system. And then at 11:59, we're going to start to see the propellant load. And as that happens, as those things start to happen, we're going to start to see some steam come off of the rocket, and that's perfectly normal. We're going to see that steam kind of accelerate closer to about 12:30 when they chill the rocket, to get it to, because that thing's about to get super hot, so they're going to chill it off. They're going to chill it out about a little after 12:30. They go to internal power at 12:33, verify and go for launch. With any luck, everything will be good. And then at 12:34, 1, 2, 3, 4, lift off to the International Space Station. So that's what we have coming up. That's what's on the way. And and then from there we'll see where we go. Again, if you were with us Sunday night, early Monday morning, we got to T-minus 2 minutes and 30-ish seconds, and the launch scrubbed because of an issue with the ignition fluid. So,
the timing was a blessing and a curse for us.
Yeah.
Because everything was going so swimmingly that I think by the time I got to 2 minutes, I was convinced it was going off. But it also gave us plenty of time to go through a lot of the content that we had prepared for everyone. Had they scrubbed an hour in, we wouldn't have been able to do our show.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we wouldn't have gotten to meet, a lot of cool people. Yeah,
and
Holly and
Jim and Professor Marbles.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how things play out over the course of the next hour, we may get to hear some more from them. I'm going to have Jared pop that rocket up full. Maybe put lo-fi beats on for a moment. We're going to pause a moment here in the Carolina Weather Group, and we're going to let our friends at WCNC Plus join us. Stand by. We'll be back with you in less than a minute. You're watching continuing coverage of SpaceX Crew-6 launch from NASA Kennedy Space Center. You are taking a live look at the SpaceX Falcon 9 with the Crew Dragon Endeavour capsule atop there. This is a live shot from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. 4 astronauts are currently atop that rocket, and in just over an hour, NASA and SpaceX hopes to launch them into space for a 6-month stay at the International Space Station. Good evening and welcome to continuing coverage of NASA and SpaceX Crew-6 mission. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte, North Carolina. We welcome in our viewers now, not only on the Carolina Weather Group, but also on WCNC Plus. Once again, I'm joined by Carolina Weather Group's Jared Smith in Charleston, South Carolina. That's where Jared was on Sunday night, the last time NASA and SpaceX tried to launch this rocket. I've relocated back here to Charlotte. I was actually out there at Kennedy and participating in what's called the NASA social event. I got to do it last weekend. Jared got to do it in 2011. It's open to space enthusiasts of all ages, all audience sizes, all forms of, frankly, enthusiasm, I suppose. You get to spend several days out there at Kennedy, or maybe another one of NASA's facilities, going behind the scenes. So over the course of the next hour, we're going to take you behind the scenes of Kennedy Space Center and show you things that it's not typically open to the public, all while continuing to monitor the countdown, just under an hour here to launch. And we'll be listening in to mission control, to launch control, to the astronauts as we prepare for liftoff. Let's take this shot full as we look here at the lovely aerial photography of NASA, looking at that meatball logo, the big blue circular logo there, along with the American flag, on the side of the Vehicle Assembly Building. This is the VAB. This is where NASA has assembled rockets like Apollo and Artemis. And there, off in the distance, Launch Pad 39B, home to SpaceX and the Falcon 9 rocket. Again, we've got 4 astronauts up there. We're still waiting for fueling to begin here in the course of the next hour or so. And as Jared reminds us, we had a little bit of a fueling issue on Sunday. Let's listen to this
tank
first.
Isolation valves to equalize low flow pressure.
SpaceX Dragon copy to 1.
So that may happen from time to time as we continue to get audio communications at unexpected moments. But Jared, for reviewers just joining us, what happened on Sunday night's launch attempt?
So, oh my goodness! And Sunday night, that was a particular heartbreaker because James is out there. I mean, he was out there ready to go. Everyone was ready to see a rocket, but about 2 minutes to go, and there was an issue with essentially the ignition fluid. They call it a TT, the TT ground system, the system that basically is responsible for getting the fluid there to ignite that thing. And I'm not going to say the full name of TT on the air. It's very long. That'll be an
Dragon
exercise for the
SpaceX,
viewer.
you are go for section 5. When ready, report go for launch.
Okay.
All right, picking up section 5, preparation for LES arming.
We would love to hear them in their own words say go for launch.
Yeah, I would love to hear that. We'll again, we'll see how things are going. Obviously, things have been going pretty well again tonight. We've been monitoring here, the checklists, comm checks, all of the very important things that have to happen, all the step-by-step checklist that has to happen in order to get people into space, and it's got to be perfect. That's the kicker there. Going to space is not as easy as it may look at times. It is not easy. It is not routine. And there's a lot that goes into it. And as we know from Sunday night, Monday morning, one little glitch in a system, and then that's it. We're done.
Yeah.
SpaceX Dragon is go for launch.
Go for launch. 4 astronauts atop.
SpaceX copies. Dragon is go.
The Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon feel like they are go for launch. So we will get that crew walkway, that crew arm out of the way coming up in the next 20 minutes or so. And we will also hear everyone else get to say go for launch. They're going to go station by station across NASA, SpaceX, from Kennedy to Houston to California, where SpaceX is. We'll actually get to hear a bunch of officials all kind of say that they are also, we hope, go for launch.
Yep.
The International Space Station is exactly that. It's an orbiting space lab. It's actually a national laboratory for the United States, and it's been up there orbiting the world and continues to do so until the year 2030. It's conducting research across nations, across scientific boundaries, and it's going to one day help us get to the moon and get on to Mars. All of this is a stepping stone on how we as a human civilization can further reach out into the stars for human spaceflight. And Jared, we had the opportunity to speak with the director of the Kennedy Space Center while I was out there this past weekend. Her name is Janet Petro, and she met us inside that vehicle assembly building to give us a key insight into what lies ahead in the years ahead with NASA's plan to return astronauts.
We had our first Artemis 1 mission, as you said, at the end, capstone of our 60th anniversary. It was a big anniversary present for us. But yeah, first woman and first person of color on the surface of the moon, lunar. I have my personal favorite that I picked out in the astronaut that I want to go, but who knows? I'll be making an announcement for the crewed flight of Artemis 2 sometime this year, soon, sometime this year. But then, of course, Artemis 3 is when the crew will actually be descending down to the surface of the moon. So that'll be the real exciting. Right now? 2 will be next year, towards the end of the year. Probably like November, December is my guess, and then a year after that, 2025, will be Artemis 3. And that flight's heavily dependent on our SpaceX partner developing the human lander system. First time ever that NASA has awarded a commercial company to develop and build and design, and we buy a service for them for getting our astronauts to and from the surface of the moon. So that's super exciting. So they're doing their HLS. You've probably been following some of their Starship operations, successful static fire. So hopefully they'll be doing their first suborbital flight. And then, of course, Artemis 3 will be bringing up our astronauts in Orion, matching up and bringing them down. 2025 is when we're shooting for. But there is some complexities and some dependencies there, so we'll see.
Jared, it was great to get to talk to her, and it's a really exciting time for NASA as we look to return people to the moon, the first woman, the first person of color as a part of the Artemis program. Artemis named for the twin sister of Apollo, which first brought man to the moon, and now we will return humans to the moon in the years ahead. It's a very exciting time, and it's sometimes a little tricky to remember that everything that is happening right now is all about, yes, getting to the moon. They want to have a new space station orbiting the moon, but then eventually on to Mars.
And and I think it's a great point. I mean, the way that you put it so beautifully earlier was, it's like, hey, you're gonna check out this Crew-6 launch. It's gonna be awesome, but really, Artemis, oh my God.
For those of you who were with our pregame show, yes, that was exactly the theme. Oh, we're so excited you're here at Kennedy for Crew-6, but have you heard about Artemis?
Yeah, exactly. And everything we do is a stepping stone to that. Everything that we do, going to the space station, going. All the extended flight that we've done on the space station over the years. Yeah. I mean, it's been in orbit for, oh my goodness, over 2 decades at this point. Still going strong.
Built by many nations, and they're hoping the next generation will be built in partnership with private industry, which is exactly what's happening here tonight, right? These are NASA astronauts conducting NASA science, built on a rocket by private industry. SpaceX, in this case, is one of several vendors out there now at Cape Canaveral.
Yes, and it's an interesting analog to what we do in the weather enterprise, because in the weather enterprise, very much is a public-private partnership. In fact, probably the model for public-private partnership between government and various distributors of weather information. I mean, we have a little microcosm of that. We tend to work closely with the folks at the National Weather Service. We do spotter trainings. We do, we have them on and things like that. And so this is very much like that. And it's good. It's healthy. It lets NASA focus on the bigger picture of getting to the moon, of getting to Mars. So that is really fantastic. Now, part of this too, getting back to the space station and the importance of the space station is to learn how can the human body stand up to long-term space flight. How do we learn how to do space flight? And one of the most important parts of it is sleep. And so during the NASA social panel on Saturday, I want to say it was Saturday.
All the days are blurring together. That sounds right. Saturday.
Yeah, sure. We'll call it Saturday. So on Saturday, NASA Social had a panel, a Q&A with several NASA officials, including some astronauts. And one of the questions was about how do they sleep? And so let's take a listen.
Hi, I'm Mario Puzo, coming from Los Angeles, California. I'm really curious, how is the sleep experience while you're out in space? And what are your dreams like? Is there anything special that you can share with us?
You want to go first? Sure, I'll talk. So I think the first sensation to kind of work through, and it's a little bit different for everyone. Everyone sleeps a little bit, restrains himself a little differently, but I'm sure you've all had that feeling when you start to fall asleep at night, and if your arm goes off the corner of the bed or something like that, and you like startle up, and you've probably all had the experience of being in a roller coaster and the feeling of your stomach coming up. So you have that. I mean, you are in free fall when you're in space, and so as soon as you close your eyes, you snap back awake because your body is telling you you're falling. So it's really hard for your brain to ignore that, because if you were to be falling, like walking forward and falling, you couldn't fall asleep while you're falling. It's just your brain won't allow that to happen. You'll wake up before you hit the ground. So it takes different people different times, but for me, about 2-ish days to actually get over that feeling and be able to close my eyes and not have my brain kick yourself back awake. In terms of dreams, I don't honestly remember any significant changes, but I do distinctly remember both on the way up and the way down. The first time on the way up, so on orbit, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks in, was the first time I had a dream where I was floating in the dream. And that next day was the first time that as much.
All right, we're going to take a pause on that real quick. We're going to listen in for a go, no go poll for loading the propellant, which is
what we're hoping to hear is each person say that they are go for launch, whether they're the weather officer, the launch range officer, regardless of what their job is. We want everyone to say go. So we got the heads up while we were in that last piece of video that they were getting ready to do it, and that's why we've stepped away. We'll hopefully get back to the sleep story. It's a good one, and I'm glad somebody asked that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're going to listen in for that. And again, the next scheduled event, the next thing that we expect in a few minutes, the crew arm that you see attached to the kind of like leaning up against the Dragon there, the Dragon capsule there, that is going to retract. That's going to be kind of the first thing to retract away from the rocket as we begin to get ready for launch. So we'll be waiting for that. We expect that around 11:52. Right now, we're going to take a listen. We're going to continue to listen in for that go, no go poll for propellant load. And propellant load, if all goes well, that begins just shy of midnight. So at 11:59, they're going to start loading fuel into the rocket. And when that happens, we're going to start to see some steam come off of the rocket. Again, that liquid propellant is very, very cold. So the rocket will steam, and you will see more steam as they continue to chill the rocket in preparation for launch. And we rest assured that is perfectly normal. So we're listening in here.
The 4 astronauts crossed that crew arm at about 9:30 tonight and have been laying on their backs largely since then. And they found out on Sunday, and I'm sure they knew this already, but the rest of us found out on Sunday that when you scrub at the very last minute, it takes about 15 minutes to get that fuel back out. So that was more time they spent just kind of reclined back in launch position.
Yeah, they weren't happy about it.
I think they were disappointed.
Yeah.
Look, safety comes first. If there's a problem, you got to stop.
Yep.
But at T-minus 2 minutes, I'm sure they were mentally prepared for that ride into space.
Yeah, they were ready to go, and they just couldn't light it. So that's how it goes. Space is hard.
Space is very hard. It took us months to get Artemis up. And, I think we forget how hard it really is. We got pretty good with a few notable exceptions at the space shuttle program, to the point where it gets hard if you want to watch it on regular television. It's not like it pops onto news networks anymore, these launches, with key milestones excluded.
Yeah,
but we have 4 people strapped to a rocket right now.
I know. And there's just so many of these launches now. I mean, not all of them, a vast majority of them are uncrewed, but we launch constantly. I mean, we had another round of Starlinks launch yesterday.
We did. I almost got to see the Monday launch. So on Sunday night, early Monday morning, when they scrubbed the Crew-6 launch, I thought, okay, 1 o'clock tomorrow, I'll go watch the Starlink satellite launch. And then they pushed that back to 6, and I thought, I got to get back on the road to Charlotte. So I still have not seen a rocket launch.
Yeah, well, we'll get you one. We'll get you one. But
yeah, it'll happen eventually. Either Kennedy or maybe Wallops. Wallops in Virginia is a good one too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's a few places that we, Cape Canaveral is not the only game in town, by any stretch of the imagination. Wallops is there. There's also on the West Coast, Vandenberg Air Force Base. They see a lot of really dramatic launches and launch aftermaths out of there.
You made a reference a moment ago to how frequently rockets are launching now in this age. And, I think during the pandemic, as they were launching the demo missions, the first by SpaceX from US soil, that was a kind of exciting time, not only during the pandemic, because it gave us something to focus on, but it also getting us back ever since the shuttle program ended in 2011. But the fact that SpaceX was doing those is also, again, kind of alluding to the fact that we will have more humans blasting off into space, not associated with NASA or not associated with the European Space Agency or the Russian cosmonauts and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
We've already kind of seen it where the extreme ultra rich people who can afford it. And, I think that's kind of the idea. We heard this discussed while I was at Kennedy this weekend, is how in our lifetime, space might become the rich person's vacation. Just like when airlines first came out, they were ultra expensive. They're still pricey, but they became more accessible over time.
And
Poll is complete, and the team is ready for crew access arm retract, propellant load, and launch.
Did somebody forget to transmit
control
us
rooms
the
are going to
poll?
lockdown at T-minus 45 minutes and remain in that state until the launch escape system is disarmed. All operators are remain at their console and maintain a sterile cockpit until MD confirms successful disarming of the launch escape system following orbit insertion or propellant offload in the event of a scrub. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD and they'll approve aborting the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into the launch abort sequence. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off, relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Launch control, you may proceed with arming the crown for movement.
Okay, so
that explains the silence that you and I were talking over, because we were waiting for the poll to begin, and it seems like it wasn't transmitted publicly.
I'd crew arm stow has started.
But it was the other night.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I don't know. Sometimes somebody forgets to hit the button.
So in the next few moments, we'll watch that walkway begin to pivot away. They need to get it out of the way, so when they launch the rocket, it's not in the way. Oh, there it goes.
Wow.
There it goes.
Yeah, there it goes.
That seemed fast, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it moves pretty quickly. They're actually running a little ahead of schedule, it looks like.
They are.
So
there
we were expecting that 11:52. It is happening right now.
So this is a view at the very end of that walkway. This is where the astronauts we saw them go in before. That is moving out of the way. Again, it's also actually on almost like a back brace. It's actually being braced up right now too, and that will have to kind of release too.
This is a really great. Thank you, Michelle, on YouTube. They don't do a verbal poll like NASA does. Did not know that. Interesting.
I could have sworn we heard it the other night, but I also had the phone bridge dialed in, and I may go sneak away and do that.
Yeah, I think
let's take this shot full if we can. I love this orbiting shot.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so maybe go back to it. Let's take it full anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were talking to Holly earlier. She's one of the NASA social participants out there, and she was saying that she thought maybe there were some extra drones in the air tonight, and maybe we can get some extra aviation shots. There it is. I had a feeling it was coming back.
Yeah, there it is.
We actually
crew access arm retraction complete.
Shannon Gregory is the name of NASA's Kennedy's head of aviation. We actually had a chance to meet him on Friday in his hangar where NASA keeps their helicopters. They use the helicopters for amazing videography like that, but it's also for security, for keeping boats away, for looking for people where they're not supposed to be, for research, for observation, for security, for medical evacs if that were to be needed. NASA's helicopters are multifaceted. They can actually transport not one but two patients inside their helicopter if needed.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
The whole weekend was full of, for at least for myself, a whole lot of, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I also didn't realize how much I was retaining until just now.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, so there it is. So again, the next milestone is that the escape system will be armed. So we expect that here shortly. And then probably around midnight, maybe even a little bit before, depending on how things are going, they'll start to load the propellant, the fuel. So
should we go back to that video that we were in the middle of when we stepped away for the poll about sleep? And while we do that, I'm going to step away and I'm going to go dial into the extra phone bridge.
Sounds good. All right. Yeah. Then let's so let's go back to the NASA social panel from Saturday talking about how do astronauts sleep.
You can use the walls and the ceiling in space. You'll always reorient your body for conversations and to talk, to work in the way that it looks like on the ground, because the laptops and the equipment is oriented a certain direction. But after that time, it didn't matter. And I could come around a corner, it didn't matter. It was, and all of a sudden, like, you notice little things. So like the first few weeks, the ground is always asking, like, did you power off that payload? And that's their gentle way of saying, hey, idiot, you like kicked it with your foot, because we're just like tearing through Ethernet cables and bumping into things. But after that 3 weeks, once that clicked, it was like, oh, everything makes sense. And you just notice, like, just floating through, you just see something just like you can now in your house, like right away, you're like, that's out of place. And that was when I had that dream on the way after I landed. The first time I got up in the middle of the night, like it was like 10 hours after we landed. And even though the chair was on the ground, I could not convince myself, it was dark in the room, we're in crew quarters, that I was not standing on the wall. Like I actually had to have my wife come help me get off the ground, because I was convinced I was going to fall over because I was on the wall. Obviously I was not on the wall. It was the chair. I was doing this with the chair, but I couldn't connect. And then about the first good sleep I had that wasn't ambient induced after landing, I had a dream where I was talking to people in the PMM and they were floating, but I was standing on the ground in the PMM. And when I woke up from that, everything was fine, like totally back to normal. So it's amazing what your brain does. And we talk about, you're like a baby in space. You can't eat on your own. You can't poop or pee on your own. You really can't do anything on your own, much like a baby. And just like a baby, all you want to do is sleep, because your brain is doing a whole bunch of rewickering in the background, which is actually one of the things we study with some of the GRASP experiments and some stuff for sensory deprivation. So it's pretty cool how your brain rewires itself, and it takes effort and energy for it to do that. But yeah, everyone, and then once you do adjust to sleeping, some people like to be bungeed in, some people like to free float. I know on the shuttle, different people did different things. So that's kind of personal preference, but it's the best sleep I've had in my life. I have 3 young kids, so no one was waking me up in the middle of the night. So it was awesome.
I didn't have any problem sleeping, but I found out I didn't need to sleep as much. I don't know, maybe we were really busy, but I will go along with what you're saying about, you can really tell first-time flyers from folks that have flown more than once in the experience. I remember on my last flight, Sergei Krikalev, who had been a year for a space, it was like poetry in motion, watching him move through the vehicle. And on a previous flight, I had a newbie that flew with us, and it was like they were bouncing off the walls the whole time, even after 2 weeks. They hadn't adapted to 0G. The interesting thing is the physiological aspects that Raj was talking about. It takes time to adapt to 0G and a time to adapt to 1G coming back. But with each flight, you learn, your brain remembers. And I'll never forget my second flight. Once we got to 0G, it was like, hey, I'm here, I'm back. It's amazing. So you adapt quicker each time to both 0G and 1G with the number of flights. I never had any weird dreams, but something that's really cool is, especially on a high inclination flight, it's all dark and you're sleeping at night, and all of a sudden one of these high energy particles hits your retina and you get this flash in your eye from so that's kind of interesting.
Cool, but also depressing. It's like, that's my cornea getting bombarded by radiation. So, but
All right, and as we were rolling that tape, the Crew Dragon launch escape system has been armed, ready to go. Visors are closed, and we are getting closer to launch. We're getting closer to the propellant loading, and so that is the next milestone that is expected. And by the way, big big shout out to the folks at the NASA commercial crew, public relations, for tweeting out these milestones here. This is really helpful for us as we're covering this evening to know kind of what to expect.
F9 tanks are venting for propellant load.
Okay, so we are going to start. It sounds like propellant load is going to begin, and again, the expectation is that as long as everything goes okay, we're going to be going up at 12:34. So again, in a little bit more than a half hour from now, we'll be, with any luck, if everything goes according to plan, everything goes well, there's no issues, we'll be going back up to, we'll be launching off to the International Space Station. So again, we'll bring James back into the mix here. Maybe. I'm not sure where this video went. There it is. That was weird. Okay. Oh, we got two.
Got me now?
Yeah, I've got two of you.
Two of me? Got two of the rocket.
Yeah, two of the rocket. How do I have two of the rocket? Strange.
Because I went and dialed in that phone bridge, remember? And there's an extra visual, so you can unspotlight one of those. We're coming up to just shy of midnight, as Jared mentioned, 34 minutes until the launch of the Crew-6 mission. One of the things the International Space Station does, not only is it going to help us someday get onto Mars, but it's also helping us with medical back here at Earth. So one of the things, Jared, they talked about is how they're actually kind of 3D printing, learning how to 3D print some muscle tissue, I think, to help with medical procedures and surgeries and the like. Also, with regards to the moon and to Mars, especially with the latter, they have to learn how to grow food. And so about how they are trying to perfect growing crops in space. What's the amount of sunlight, the amount of oxygen, the amount of CO2, what's the right
Propellant load has started.
And now we are fueling the rocket. 35 minutes until liftoff. We are right on schedule, right on time. There is no hold window. They do have sometimes a little extra buffer room. And so far they've been running at or just ahead of schedule. And so we are doing pretty well. But yeah, they have all sorts of plant experiments going on, some on the ground, some up in space. I refer to it as the dating game, where they had all of these different, like, I don't know if refrigerators or chambers, where they could modify the atmosphere in them. And thus, they even had one where they were just like taking the plants and spinning them around. They had 3D printed kind of this like random movement generator to try to simulate space flight. And they called it confusing the biology, because they wanted to see how the plant was going to grow.
There you go. These are the kinds of things that we've got to know. These are the kind of things that we got to figure out before we get that. So let's let's see. We're having some. So yeah, we're having some technical difficulties here.
Well, we have lots of redundant feeds, so I just shot you a little message to let you know which one of these I think we should probably stick with, and then we have a backup system, just like the SpaceX Crew has a backup system in case they were to need any redundancies or backups. We're 32 minutes from liftoff, and let's go to Jim Reed's question from the Q&A panel on Saturday. He was another one of the NASA social participants, and he asked about ham radio. He represents a group that uses amateur radio, ham radio, to connect students with astronauts up at the International Space Station. And we learned something interesting, not just fun and games when it comes to that ham radio. Take a listen.
Now with Jim Reed, a ham radio operator who, among other things, helps folks get in contact with the ISS, International Space Station, with that little guy right there, the ham radio. Jim, welcome to Carolina Weather Group.
Excited to have you around and have you along this evening. And I know in a few minutes we're going to try and hear something. We're going to try and hear the people bouncing off the space station. Yes.
Yes. So the International Space Station, NASA and the International Space Station, as you just heard, and ham radio have a long relationship. I mean, this dates back to the 1960s, launching satellites in orbit. So we've had ham radio in space since 1961. The ISS has 2 ham radios on it, and there's really 3 purposes for it. First is the ability it's an educational purpose. So we use the radios to put astronauts in touch with students on the ground, and they get to ask students questions about their time in space. So it can be anything from the common, what do you do to go to the bathroom in space, for younger kids. But for the older kids, it's really mature, very interesting questions. And this is kind of a culmination of studies. So they will work and will provide curriculum that lets them learn about how circuits are made and how radio waves work. And then we culminate all of that with the live contact with the astronaut over a 10-minute period one day. And that's really popular. We do between 60 and 80 of those around the world every year. And the Sultan, Sultan Al Nahari, who's going up, is very interested in doing this. He's got 7 or 8 of these scheduled while he's up. So we're very excited to be working with them. Amateur Radio on International Space Station is the name of the group. And then the other two options we do is there's radios are up there. They're being used, 10 or 20 minutes a day or a week to do these student contacts. The rest of the time, they're ham radio repeaters. So just like that might be on top of a big building in Charlotte, there's one up on top of the space station. And we're listening for, in the next couple of minutes, the space station will pass over, and I'll try and listen see if anybody's sending up a signal. Heard earlier this afternoon, I picked up a signal from Canada while I was riding around here that somebody was working the International Space Station. The third part is, as you heard Raj say, it's emergencies, when all else fails, which is what ham radio does, right? We provide backups when the power goes out. If street lights go out in town, traffic lights, they may call ham radios to help out, not to direct traffic, but to help with communications, those kind of things. We've helped out in hurricanes and tornadoes and so many other things. So same kind of thing when all else fails is one of the reasons why ham radio is on the space station.
That's fantastic, and it just makes sense. It never occurred to me that it kind of would blow people's mind to think, yeah, you can just beam up a radio, just any old ham radio can just get in touch.
Yeah, so this is not the optimal antenna to do it. If I was going to be doing it, I'd probably use a directional antenna. But with this, I can probably pick them up as the ISS passes over. We have 2 things working in our favor right now. One is height. It's just above us. There's nothing else between us and it. So even though it's a fairly low power signal, it's only 5 watts. Because it's so high and it's unobscured, we may be able to pick something up here today. But lots of hams, just as a hobby, they'll go out in their backyard and they'll use a directional antenna and they'll try and bounce either a voice signal and talk to somebody else, or a digital signal and send a packet up and down and be able to listen for that as well. Don't have that on this particular radio, but we're going to try and listen to some voice repeater stuff as we go along. Nothing yet.
Nothing yet. How long of a window do you usually have with an ISS pass to pick anything up?
On a good pass, it's between 8 and 12 minutes. Horizon to horizon, a lot of it depends on, we're here at the Kennedy Space Center. It's really flat and open, right? If I was in Charlotte, I got more to deal with mountains, those kind of things. So I need to, position myself appropriately to get the best pass. And the ISS doesn't always pass straight overhead, right? It may pass off to the east or the west, and you have to take that into account as well. So all those different things, it makes it a little skillful to be able to do. We the fun part though is, on a very rare occasion, and I always have to say very rare occasion, an astronaut on the space station will pick up the microphone and just start talking to hams. So instead of working the repeater, you're working an astronaut, and they'll come on. Kel Lindgren was really good at this. He was on Crew-4, and he was great at just, he'd get on and he'd operate for a few hours, and around the world, people would talk to him. And he'd just come on and he goes, "Welcome to the International Space Station." And he writes down your call sign, and you can get a cool card that confirms it and everything. But what better way to play radio than to hear an astronaut tell you to welcome to the station? So that's really one of the cool experiences you get to have doing this. And anybody can do it. It's the it only takes the most basic level of license to be able to do this in ham radio. I'm listening for this as we go. I'm listening for the ISS as we go along. Haven't heard anything yet. So let me tell you a little bit about licensing. Ham radio is licensed by the FCC because we get special frequencies to use. So these are frequencies that you wouldn't normally be able to use if you had a GMRS handheld or a family radio service handheld or a CB. In exchange for that, you've got to take a test. It's 35 questions. It asks you at the really simple things like, if you're into electronics, what's the difference between a resistor and a capacitor? So understanding basic electronics is one of the things. Battery safety. A lot of it is really based on just kind of knowing the frequencies, how signals work, those kind of things. There's a lot of study information online. If you're interested, just look online, ham radio training, and you're able to find out more about this. But it's a really cool opportunity to do it. 35 questions, $35 for your license, and you're ready to go. So I am totally ready to, explain more of that if you want me to.
Absolutely. I know that I've got to renew my ticket pretty soon. Actually, it's been about a decade, and I know.
Yep. I am N4 BFR. And that is a vanity call sign. I've been licensed about 15 years. Just was bored one weekend on a vacation and listening to shortwave things from around the world, and read some information. It's like, you can be a ham, no Morse code required. Take this test. And I took a practice test and I passed it. So I went the next weekend and took the formal test and got licensed. N4 BFR is a vanity call sign, so I got to customize it a little bit. But it's been a great experience to do a ton of different ham radio things. It's an inch wide. You can go an inch wide and a mile, or an inch deep and a mile wide, or a mile deep and an inch wide if you only want to focus on emergency communications or building radios or talking to satellites. International shortwave kind of stuff. There's so many different elements. So some of us who are hanging around here are actually listening in on ham radio. So there's right behind me on top of the vehicle assembly building, the Kennedy Space Center Amateur Radio Club, and there is such a thing. They have a repeater. They rebroadcast the same information you're hearing, so we can listen on handhelds around while we're listening to that. And same thing, when that's not in use for doing this, you can talk to other hams and catch up on news of the day or whatever, storm chasing, whichever you were. Storm chasing is a lot of fun. And yes, I could go off on a whole different thing too. And I really like the folks. I'm out of Atlanta. The folks at the National Weather Service in Peachtree City and the hams down there that interface with them are great people.
Absolutely. And radio amateurs in general are just some of the best people you'll ever meet. Just so eager to teach, so happy for people to learn. I absolutely love the community. It's absolutely fantastic. We might have to get you on for a show just about ham radio and the weather. So I mean,
I would be more than happy to come back and bring some friends.
Yeah, no, we definitely need to do that. So. All right, and that was Jim Reed talking to us about ham radio and in many uses with the International Space Station and with emergency communications. If when all else fails, ham radio, and they actually can call down from the International Space Station. They can use ham radio as a separate set of comms if needed. So what we're looking at now, you're starting to see that steam show up on the rocket, and the rocket is being fueled for launch. Still go. 12:34 a.m. is the expected time. of liftoff here, and we are starting to see that steam show up again, that cold propellant being loaded in onto the Falcon 9 rocket that will take Dragon to the International Space Station.
Yeah, that seems completely normal. Although if you didn't know that, it could be alarming. We do have the fueling ongoing, as Jared mentioned. The crew long gone from the launch complex, leaving only the 4 astronauts, the 2 Americans, 1 astronaut from the United Arab Emirates, and 1 from Russia. And Jared, one of my NASA social participants, told me this weekend he was staying at the same.
James, I think you're breaking up a little bit.
Got me now?
I think I got you now. Yeah, you were breaking up there a little
This
bit,
is
but
the first or second trip to the space station, I think, for UAE. So there were a lot of foreign press at the Kennedy site this weekend.
oh yeah, and that's it's a big deal. Yeah, it is very much a big deal to get to go to space for anybody at any point, but especially some of these countries like the UAE. They don't have native space programs. They still kind of nascent as far as their space programs. So for them to send somebody up to the International Space Station, that's a big deal. That's a huge thing. That's a historic thing for that nation. So so we continue to watch. We're watching this. It's going to get steamier and steamier. And again, as James mentioned, that's perfectly normal. You have a cold propellant interacting with warm Florida temperatures, and that is what is going to happen. So here's what's coming up. So right now we're loading the rocket with fuel. And the engine is going to be chilled out just before launch. A few minutes before launch, they're going to begin to intentionally ice around the engines just so it doesn't get too hot when that thing goes out. Fuel load completes about 2 minutes ahead of the launch time, and at that point, that's where we had to scrub last time. So,
yes. And it was about 5. Excuse me. It was about 5 minutes out from
Stage
launch.
2, RP1 load complete.
Okay, stage 2 load complete. Again, all that smoke on your screen right now is completely normal. It was about T-5 minutes when they first noticed something was funky, and then T-2 minutes when they called it off.
Yep. So, we'll be listening for that very closely, but all goes to plan. Finish fueling up about a couple minutes before launch. They'll give one final go for launch, and then we're off to the races, off to the International Space Station. Everything is looking good. No changes in weather, no weather concerns tonight. There had been some concerns about in the ascent stage. Sounds like that's not really going to be an issue. Sounds like we're good there. If for some reason the rocket does not go tonight, it becomes much harder. There is a 30% risk tomorrow of not meeting launch weather criteria, and there is a 40% risk on Friday. Cold front that'll be moving into the Carolinas, again, Carolina Weather Group. So let's tie it back to local for a second. Cold front moving into the southeast, and a very vigorous and dynamic upper storm system will be increasing the winds and bringing a chance for rain to Florida later in the week. So weather-wise, we want to get this out tonight. We want to get this go. We want to get them moving tonight. That's what we would like to do, and hopefully we will get to do that. So, James, I'm going to bring us back into the fold here a little bit. And when you were out here last week, as we have some new viewers joining us, you were out here last week, and tell me what before all this scrubbing happened. Give me a sense of what the mood was like getting to this point, starting to see this get fueled up.
Everyone was super excited. About 25 of us partaking now. So they are space enthusiasts who post content on social media, Carolina with a group amongst them, get invited down, and we got to tour around the complex. So on Friday, we went inside the vehicle assembly building. We got to go inside a crawler, which carries Apollo space shuttles, Artemis, out to NASA's launch pad out there at Kennedy. We got to go to not the Air Force Museum, but the
Space Force
Space
Dragon
Force
SpaceX
and got to
F9
learn
is
a
proceeding
lot.
with prop load, and we're tracking no issues with Dragon or F9 going into launch.
Fabulous. That's what we like to hear.
Mhm.
And you know, the
SpaceX Dragon copy.
Space Force folks have so many cool things because that takes you back to like the Mercury days, the very first satellites, even some of the early flights that were done not by humans but by apes, by chimpanzees, right? Into orbit. That was all done from the Cape Canaveral side, which is very close to NASA, but they are separated by water. And are two different kind of agencies. Jared, can you take the rocket full for a second? Look at the
Yeah.
way in the light.
Yeah.
You see it's almost like streaking down,
Yeah.
but in like a pattern, like a steady cadence, like a heartbeat on one of those medical monitors.
Yeah, I'm beginning to wonder if I mean and again, the timings that the Commercial Crew folks have posted are somewhat. It looks like this is kind of an intentional. Let's let's chill it out now. It's really cool. I mean, that is
H2 lock
really
load has started.
And then just cut off right there.
Yeah.
They closed whatever that upper valve was.
Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah. Yeah, you can see steam is normal. Everything here is normal. Everything is moving ahead very nicely. Again, fueling will continue.
I was just gonna say the astronauts are in the tippy top of this, like the little thimble at the top. The rest of this is rocket, of which is going to fall back to Earth, by the way.
Yeah, this is going to land.
Right.
So, which is always which is. I remember the first time I saw that, it was like, oh my goodness, this is out of a James Bond movie. This is this is wild. But anyway, we're going to keep it on the rocket here. It is we're getting close to 12:19 a.m. and again, what we're expecting here, we're continuing to fuel the rocket. At about 12:32, they're going to switch Dragon to internal power, which means they're going to, it'll be disconnected from the umbilicals that are providing power to the spacecraft right now. It will become, it will take over basically, and that will be kind of one of the last milestones before this rocket, issues willing, can get on its way to the International Space Station. So
We are expecting to hear later on in this year from NASA on who will be flying the Artemis 2 and the Artemis 3 missions. Artemis 2 will take humans around the moon for the first time since the Apollo era, and then Artemis 3 by the year, hopefully 2025. We'll take all training in the Artemis program, and they will announce later this year exactly who will fly those upcoming missions. As some of you may recall, we had Artemis 1 last year that was uncrewed. There were no humans aboard, but it flew around the moon further than any passenger rated vehicle, any vehicle rated for human flight has ever gone. And as far as we know, everything went largely well in that demo test flight.
Yep. And everything we're doing here is a stepping stone to that. Going to the space station, these launches, continuing to improve the science ahead of that, because we have some big plans for what we want to do with Artemis and going to the moon and eventually using that as a jumping off point to go to Mars. We have some big plans there, and that's going to be really exciting. I can't wait for that next launch. I got to try and make it down there for that one. I got to see an SLS go up.
Not if I apply before you do.
Oh, maybe we'll both get in. Yeah, maybe we'll both get in. So anyway, just watching rocket here, not hearing much right now, not much crosstalk there. I would love to be a fly on the wall inside the capsule without the radios on to know what they're talking about. Can't imagine what that conversation's like.
We observed at least one of them closing their eyes earlier, which I have no fault of them for wanting to rest up a little bit. This is a pretty grueling. They've done this now 3 times. This is the second actual live launch attempt with fueling of the vehicle, but 3
Mhm.
times if you count the dress rehearsal that they've done in the past week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, been there, done that.
It's certainly not they do adjust their body clocks to the International Space Station time.
Mm-hmm. They sure do. So again, yeah, 12:22 a.m. So at this point, we're getting close to the engine chill phase here, and that'll get us really close into the. Before you know it, with any luck, we'll be getting moving. So yeah, here's a look at is this mission control or launch control? Where is this? This looks like mission control.
I think this is I think this is launch. I think this is launch at Kennedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's different than the one they used for. No, you know what? I might be wrong, because you think of mission control, I'm thinking of Artemis with the big windows and everything.
Yeah. That looked like Houston.
That might have been Houston.
Yeah. So.
My apologies.
Oh, you're fine.
I'm sure
you're
somebody's
fine.
already. I'm sure somebody's already writing in the comments.
I'm sure it's fine. Everything's fine. But regardless, flight controllers are getting ready. We're getting ready to go both at Kennedy to launch it, and then as soon as this thing clears the tower, it belongs to Houston. Kennedy handles launching the thing. Houston handles the space flight.
And you've got SpaceX monitoring the actual vehicle from California. You'll know when it's them, because they have the futuristic kind of giant glass.
Yes.
Giant curved monitors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And we're monitoring it here, obviously, through the NASA TV feed. And I've also over here on another screen that's kind of out of frame here, watching it. It's hard for me to share it over here, so I'm not going to do that. But we're getting 30-second updates from the GOES satellite over Florida. So we should be able.
For those who are not familiar, GOES is a weather satellite.
Yes. So we're going to use that weather satellite, and using a combination of water vapor channels and other infrared and other infrared channels, including shortwave infrared, and they're combining 2 of the they're
Dragon, SpaceX confirmed crew displays configured for launch.
SpaceX Dragon crew displays are configured for launch.
If you want a different in-flight movie, now is
Copy
the
that,
time to change
Steve.
it.
And once again, on behalf of the entire SpaceX team, we're honored to have you aboard Dragon capsule Endeavour on its next trip to the International Space Station. We wish you a great mission, good luck, Godspeed, and enjoy the ride.
And thanks again to everyone out there who made the vehicle, the ISS, our mission, and our crew ready for launch. Really want to thank everyone and appreciate the great call, much appreciated call for the scrub the other night. It was a great call and a good learning opportunity for the crew, and I think for the teams. And so once more to the breach, dear friends, Crew-6 is ready to launch.
Crew-6 is ready to launch.
That was the voice of Steve Bowen, the commander of this Crew-6 flight. I think he meant it. I think he was also being slightly polite. Everyone wanted to launch the other night, but they made the right call.
Yeah.
If there was certainly a problem.
Yep.
Now you can see here, 8 minutes and 40 seconds left on our countdown.
That's a nice wide view of the countdown clock and the launch pad there. And there's going to be some NASA social folks out there who were about to get a heck of a show. And again, we're getting very close now to launch. It is 12:25, and the expectation is that we will be getting that the fueling will be completed shortly here. We'll hear them call out when the Dragon capsule switches to internal power. Then after that, as long as there's no final hitches or hiccups like we had on Monday morning, this Crew Dragon is on the way to the International Space Station. So before they jumped in, I was talking a little bit about this satellite view that I'm using, and I don't know of any websites that have got it. And if there's anybody out there who knows where you can find this on the web, that'd be awesome, actually. But I'm looking at the it's called the Night Plume RGB. And what does that mean? That basically is a combination of 3 of the spectral bands from the GOES East weather satellite, and they're able to use those bands to detect the heat signature from the rocket and the water vapor plume that comes out behind it. So we will be able to monitor the launch on the weather satellite basically in real time, which is pretty cool. Very excited to try this out. This product was developed at the I want to say it was developed at the no, this actually this came out of the University of Wisconsin at Madison.
Engine chill has started.
All right. So the engine chill has begun. Again, we got to cool this thing down.
At 12:32, at T-minus 2 minutes, this is what's next on our timeline. That will be the propellant load complete with the Dragon switching to internal power. That was about the time we ran into a problem the other night.
Yeah, with the TT, but I'm not going to use them. I'm not going to say the full thing because I don't think I could.
No, but if you could spell it, you would win Scrabble every time.
I would absolutely win Scrabble and every spelling bee.
Stage 1, RP1 load complete.
Okay.
After liftoff, you will see the booster rockets, which makes up most of the vertical height of the Falcon 9, return down to Earth. And in order for us to see that, we may actually have to switch on over to the public feed from SpaceX and NASA TV in the other box, Jared, but we'll play it by ear and we'll see what happens. Because that is a SpaceX operation separate from the NASA operation. While they're working in conjunction together, that was distinctly something that is actually operated separately. So when most of this lands back down, I presume out on their drone ship, that's what they were going to do the other night. I presume that's what they're going to do again. Then we will hopefully be able to catch a glimpse of also been launching Starlink satellites that provide internet via satellite from Cape Canaveral this week. So it's been a very busy week for SpaceX, NASA, and for most. We are now just under about 4.5 minutes. There it is, right on screen.
Yep.
The countdown clock is the same placement as the clock used during
Dragon
the Apollo
is in
missions.
configure for terminal count. Tanks are pressurizing for strong bay recheck.
All right, and what's going to happen now is basically we're going to get to a point where they're going to start retracting some of the other arms that are holding the rocket in place to get ready to go. And we should see that move shortly.
Strong back is retracted.
This is kind of like a back brace for the rocket.
Mm-hmm.
Helps hold it upright.
Yep.
On the right side of your screen right here. Actually blocked my view the other day when they took us out to the launch complex. We were close to the rocket, but there it goes. You can see it kind of releasing its clamp.
Yep. And it was at about at this point where the glitch, the ground system for the TT started to rear itself.
A little under 4 minutes now to launch of Crew-6. 2 Americans, an astronaut from the United Arab Emirates, and 1 from Russia, making up this international flight to the International Space Station. Whereas Jared has said, there are no borders, there are no politics.
Stage 1, lock flow complete.
Don't have any regret not being there tonight. I wish I was there, but I don't regret the way life has played out. It was still an incredible experience, and I would encourage everyone, if you love space,
Dragon
eye
is
out
in
for-
terminal count and on internal power.
Keep an eye out for the next NASA social near you. We're on internal power, Jared.
Yep.
2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we could hear the crowd. People gathered at the press site.
Yeah, that would be impressive.
That was a social experience, and I mean that as a human being, not a social media, but I mean like a gathering of humans, a cooperative experience to be sharing that with other folks. 90 seconds now to launch. Crew-6 is the
Stage
7th
2, lock flow complete.
human flight cooperative between SpaceX and NASA. to
Dragon is
include
in auto idle.
their demo flight. Brierton, Charlotte, North, getting to know NASA and SpaceX this weekend at
Gas
Kennedy.
close out has
And
started.
share it with you all.
Expect flag.
And on behalf of Jared Smith and Charleston, let's listen in now to the last 60 seconds of the countdown of NASA's SpaceX Crew-6 from Kennedy Space Center.
Falcon 9 is in startup. Dragon is in countdown. Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
SpaceX Dragon copy. Go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. Fifteen seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power and liftoff of Crew-6. Go Dragon, go Falcon.
Copy 1 Alpha. Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1, propulsion nominal.
A few more clouds in the sky at Kennedy tonight than there were the other night.
But only a few.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Stage 1, throttle down.
Vehicle is supersonic. Max Q.
Stage 1, throttle up.
Max Q.
1 Bravo.
Copy 1 Bravo.
So max Q is when the rocket is under the most stress during liftoff.
You know, ahead of the trip, people told me two things. It makes a really loud sound and it looks like a sun in the
Back chill
sky.
has started.
And I can see both of those things on the video here tonight. Jared, they're taking a look here inside
You out.
one of the booster rockets. It will
Copy,
peel
you
Alpha
away.
separation confirmed.
Over
Yep,
60,000 kilometers in the sky here,
MVAC ignition.
And the
traveling at
second
nearly
stage.
6,000 kilometers per hour.
Yep, and the second stage, that was staging. That was the first stage, cuts off. Second stage is rolling, and you can see that thing is hauling the mail now. And I can see it perfectly on the weather satellite.
I'm looking forward to seeing that in a few minutes.
Yes, it's very clear. Good work.
Stay tuned for that.
Yeah, good work, University of Wisconsin at Madison.
There's a bit of irony here. The thing that was trying to overcome is now the thing that's pulling it back down to Earth.
Yep.
The booster, that is.
Acquisition signal, Bermuda.
Bermuda is a tracking station. They're out over the Atlantic Ocean right now. 130 kilometers of altitude.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
7,200 kilometers per hour.
Dragon acknowledges nominal trajectory.
There was some consideration earlier in the night about weather in this exact area out over the Atlantic Ocean. Seems like they felt confident enough that they'd be getting the weather they needed as they continue their ascent into orbit. They will arrive and dock at the International Space Station tomorrow at 1:17 a.m. Eastern Time, a little over 24 hours from now. We are T plus 4 minutes into the flight.
And in a minute or so, the first stage will be beginning its burn to land.
This is
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
a maneuver that SpaceX has really perfected.
SpaceX Dragon nominal trajectory.
I love the professionalism. So calm.
It's like they've done this before.
I just can't even think straight when I'm on a roller coaster.
I can't think straight looking at this on the weather satellite.
I love the super tease you're giving us.
It's wild, man.
Quickly approaching 10,000 kilometers per hour as their speed continues to increase. Currently holding at 192 kilometers of altitude above the Earth's surface. They're slowly inching their way up there. I think they probably leveled out a little bit more than their vertical ascent.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
SpaceX Dragon acknowledges nominal trajectory.
We have a question in our YouTube. How many gravities was Q max? The Crew Dragon's engines can propel it half a mile in just under 7.5 seconds, exerting up to 4 Gs, which is 4 times the force of Earth's gravity. Continuing to look here at second stage booster, continuing to carry these 4 men into space as we approach 200 kilometers of altitude above the Earth's surface, just under 6.5
Dragon,
minutes into the flight.
SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
SpaceX Dragon nominal trajectory.
Not only is tonight's launch good news for Crew-6 as they begin their 6-month stay at the International Space Station following docking tomorrow, but also good news for Crew-5, who in just under a week's time will get to return home after launching in October.
A long time to be up there.
Yeah, not quite 6 months though.
Stage
right?
1 entry run startup.
Stage 2, FTS has safed.
Okay, we're looking at the booster rocket now, coming back down to planet Earth, landing on a SpaceX drone ship. We're looking straight down the barrel. You can see it's got little feet. They're kind of like flippers or propellers, and it's going to help it kind of come in here. It is obviously has its engine on. That is to slow its descent. It's still coming down. Gravity is still stronger than the force upward, but it's trying to slow itself down in order to not crash
Stage 1,
into
entry
its
burn
landing
shutdown.
pad. And I think they maybe just landed it.
That's so cool.
I heard engine shut down. The picture went black. Till they tell me otherwise, I'm going to assume that was good news.
Yes.
You know, it took a little trial and error
Terminal guidance.
when they first started doing that.
Oh yes, I remember it well. I remember that very well.
20,000 kilometers per hour now as we climb to nearly 200 kilometers above the surface of the Earth, 8 minutes into flight.
SpaceX Dragon Shannon.
Stage 1,
Copy,
transonic.
Shannon.
Did he call out Shannon?
I don't know. I do not know.
MVAC shutdown.
Stage 1, landing burn.
Dragon, SpaceX. We have a nominal orbit insertion.
SpaceX Dragon copies nominal orbital insertion.
Launch escape system disarmed.
Oh, here comes the landing pad now,
Stage
Jared.
1, landing leg deploy.
Yep.
And now
Stage
I
1,
think
landing
it's
is confirmed.
Lost signal. Okay.
Ta-da.
Acquisition signal.
I don't know what else to say. It's just so cool.
That's what they said too at SpaceX. Ta-da! And that drone ship is essentially exactly that. It's a drone. There are no humans on it. In the off chance that rocket were to explode, you wouldn't want to be there.
No, you certainly wouldn't.
All right, so this is a view again now inside the next booster, which is going to peel off. The view is a little hard to discern, but as soon as it starts to peel away, it'll make more sense. That's the view at SpaceX in California. They're monitoring their rocket, they're monitoring their booster. They're preparing for separation here. Just over 10 minutes into flight. Holding at 27 kilometers per hour and 198 kilometers of altitude. Remind me to do the conversion next time. For those of you on Imperial. Continuing to look here. Look at all the people gathered at the windows,
Oh,
looking
yeah.
in. We are again waiting for this next stage to separate us. Jared also prepares his awesome weather satellite imagery of tonight's launch. I can see him smirking in my preview
Yeah.
monitor.
Yeah, I am. I'm in the process of optimizing it and slowing it down a bit.
And here comes now Dragon separating from the second stage.
Dragon separation confirmed.
Kind of looks like that scene in Apollo 13, doesn't it?
It really does. That's how good the cameras have gotten. That it looks like a movie.
Dragon, CE here. Welcome to orbit. congratulations. Your flight is exactly 4 years after the flight of the Demo 1 mission. Like Andre said, all the best things take 2 tries. Happy that we could get you off tonight. If you enjoyed your ride, please don't forget to give us 5 stars. Over to LD for some words.
There's the launch
Also, a
director.
friendly reminder to put your sushi orders in for CRS 27. Have a safe ride to the space station, and we look forward to seeing you when you get home. Thank you for flying SpaceX.
They definitely are trying to do their best.
Second lost the signal, Bermuda.
Impression.
And SpaceX Dragon copies all. That was fantastic. Thank you.
You know, the sushi thing sounds like a joke. I bet you it's not.
Probably isn't.
They get to pick some meals. They talked about it while we were at Kennedy this weekend, that they tried to avoid
And
menu
SpaceX
fatigue.
Dragon, we'd like to really, for the great ride to orbit today. It was greatly appreciated. May have taken a few rides, but a few times, but it was worth the trip. And I guess I'll pass it over to Woody for some words.
Yeah, SpaceX Dragon, just want to say as a rookie flyer, that was one heck of a ride. Thank you. I would say there's an absolute miracle of engineering, and I just feel so lucky that I get to fly on this amazing machine. Thanks to SpaceX, thanks to NASA, Commercial Crew Program, and our international partners. A lot of innovation went into this, tireless work out there, and a lot of painstaking attention to detail and focus on testing. And I think that's what makes it all possible to fly humans in space. Thank you.
Всем ребят, большое за подготовку, за то, что помогали в этом деле. Мне, всем ребятам. И я хочу сказать, что сегодня человечество делает еще один шаг в подготовке к новому большому скачку. И для меня огромная честь быть частью такой большой и дружной семьи, величайшей международной команды, как Международной космической станции, работая вместе на благо всего человечества. Today humanity takes another step for next big leap, and for me, a huge honor to be part of such a big and friendly family and the greatest international team of the ISS, working together for all mankind. Thank you.
Well said, everybody. Allow me to say a few words in Arabic first. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وصلنا الفضاء. بس بغيت أشكر أمي وأبوي وأشكر عائلتي. شكرا للقيادة الرشيدة وشكرا لمركز محمد بن راشد للفضاء اللي يعطوني الثقة هذه. وكذلك أشكر كل من جهزنا ودربنا لهذه اللحظة التاريخية من مختلف وكالات الفضاء في أنحاء العالم. شكرا لكم جزيلا. شكرا SpaceX لإيصالنا للفضاء. I would like to say thank you for everybody. Thanks to my parents, my family, thanks to our leadership, the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center for their trust. Thank you for everybody who trained us and got us ready for this mission. This is incredible. Launch was incredible, amazing. Thank you so much. And last but not least, thank you, NASA. Thank you, SpaceX, for flying us to space. Go Dragon, go SpaceX. And allow me to introduce our 5th crew member. His name is Suhail, and Suhail is the Arabic name for the star Canopus. And in the Middle East, we anticipate the appearance of Canopus because it marks the end of summer and the beginning of cool time. And Canopus is actually the second brightest star in the night sky. And this is the second flight for Suhail because it flew with astronaut Hassan Mansouri in 2019. And many people think Suhail is an alien, but to me, Earth in a spacesuit, but with high ambitions. Thank you once again, and talk to you from the ISS.
And
Great
Dragon
words.
SpaceX, we copy all those words. At this time, I can provide you an update that we had nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts. For your awareness, on hard capture hook 5, we did swap to backup motors. So you'll see that the nose cone opening did swap to backup. However, all hooks did indicate that they were traveling and look good on backup. Acquisition signal.
Copies, and we see that on the display.
Firing off my tweet here that they have done it. They have lifted off. I gotta keep up with my NASA social obligations of continuing to live tweet. Oh, this incredible feat. 1:17 a.m. tomorrow, and I mean that in the sense of 24 hours from now, is when they will arrive at the International Space Station, where they will begin a 6-month stay. I would think Crew 5, as incredible as space is,
Acquisition
probably
signal.
looking forward to coming home now, Jared.
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm sure they've in space for a minute. I think they're ready to.
Before we go over to your satellite pictures, I will just paraphrase what I said the other night, which was what I kind of had mentally prepared in my head for liftoff. And we've talked about it here tonight, Jared. There's no boundaries in space. There's no political boundaries on a map. You go around the world every 90 minutes. And when you do that, you just see one Earth. Just like this is one spacecraft and one space station with people from all backgrounds, all walks of life, all citizenships and nationalities. There's conflict in the world, but if there is hope that mankind can get through this together, we are looking at it tonight at the launch of Crew-6.
Well
And with
said.
that, thanks. I had 2 attempts at it.
So
Jared has been geeking out in my preview monitor with a smirk on his face, nerding out about what he has observed on weather satellite.
Yes.
Capturing tonight's launch from Kennedy.
Yeah.
In
This
Florida.
is pretty cool. This is pretty cool. Let's see. All right. I hope this works.
I was going to say, I figure over the last 3 hours since you first discovered this, you've come up with a way to screen share it for us.
I have figured that part out. And so, not the best. Let me see if I can't do that. That should help. But you can see that big bright. Saw that? Yep. So I've slowed it down, and I think I left too many frames at the end. I just wanted to make sure I captured it, but there it is.
Wow.
And then this little dark spot right here, like where my mouse has been, and I realize that that's kind of gone away now, but I'll point it out again here in a second. That's smoke. That's just the trailing smoke from the launch, and you can see just how fast that thing goes.
Dragon SpaceX, we see onboard caution for nose cone hard capture. This is related to the backup swap to hook 5. We can confirm the nose cone is open.
SpaceX Dragon copies, and we understand. Thank you.
I'm not sure I understand. Is nose cone supposed to be open?
I mean, they got to open it to get to the
dock tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. They kind of go right in on the nose, right?
Yep.
Jared, how many frames on satellite was that actually picked up on?
About 4 or 5.
So because we're taking pictures every 30 seconds,
yeah,
we were able to get 4 or 5 frames of it.
Dragon SpaceX, the nose cone is open. PCS and forward bulkhead Draco checkouts are complete and nominal. I'll come back with more words as we investigate the hook 5 and the hard capture system. Additionally, we have about 2 minutes left in this ground station pass if you wanted to show us your 0G indicator on the cameras.
Oh, yes,
one
let's
more
go
time.
full. 0G indicators is a nerd
SpaceX Dragon copies, we'll get them out. We're about to tuck them into bed, but we'll put them out right now.
for a stuffed animal. I don't know which feed this is going to pop up on, Jared.
Yeah.
Artemis 1 had Snoopy. We may have to wait a second here to get the visual.
Yeah.
I'm
not sure what they brought with them. 0G indicator, i.e. something floating, something soft, something cute and cuddly.
Mhm. So not an anvil, even
Not
though
an
that would really drive the point home.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just watching. I'm watching other feeds here.
I know, watching all our cameras, trying to figure out which feed is going to capture this thing first. I mean, he said he tucked it in for bed, so we had to go get it, wake it up. Probably had to stop and pee.
Yeah, I know how that can go.
Yeah.
But,
I'm trying to think what it would be. I'm trying to think of the Crew-6 emblem. Crew-6 emblem was like a pirate ship.
oh, interesting.
Maybe it's a pirate. I'm waiting for somebody in the comments to say, "You idiot! That's not a pirate ship. It's a blank ship." And I'm gonna be like, "Oh, sorry." It's definitely a ship, though. I didn't hear him come back on the radio yet. I don't think we've missed it.
No, don't think so.
I'm gonna go see if I can find my Crew-6 patch while we wait. I can still hear you. I'll be back. Jared's with you as we await.
Yep. And I'm just gonna, we're just keeping an eye on this right now. You're taking a look inside the SpaceX Control Center in California, and a lot of people monitoring, a lot of systems. There has been a report of a possible malfunction.
Dragon SpaceX, thanks for getting them back out. We could see it. That was awesome. We have an upcoming phase burn per your forward view in just over 20 minutes, 20 minutes. So you can follow that on your displays. I will get you some more words on nose cone hook 5, but again, we can't confirm it is open. And at this time, I can give you a go to step into suit doffing 4.012 and procedure 4.300. I'll be taking cameras external.
So they did not show it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, what camera were we supposed to be watching?
4.012 and 4.300. That would be way limits for the word.
It was not broadcasted on any of the NASA feeds. If it was going to be broadcast, it was probably on the SpaceX feed.
Oh yeah,
if I had to
probably
guess.
right.
So that's fine. We'll pull out a picture of it later. But yeah, that's the crew emblem. Yeah, that's
it's the crew emblem. It's probably not a pirate ship. I realize on closer examination,
Yeah.
but it is definitely a ship.
Oh yeah, it's a dragon
Expected
ship.
loss of signal.
Right?
Literally, yeah, because it rode up on it's dragon.
I do think it's a dragon ship with the International Space Station on it.
Yep, absolutely. But there were from what it sounds like they are working through some issues with the nose cone. They'll work through that. They have a backup system engaged. Sounds like nothing they can't handle.
Yeah, we anticipate a post-launch news conference coming your way at 2:30 Eastern time, and it's about 90 minutes from now. That time could change, but that is when officials are expected to brief the media, and we may learn a little bit more about what it is they are troubleshooting. But oh, here we go. I think
Dragon SpaceX, no response required. Cameras are external.
I found a tweet of the
SpaceX Dragon conversation.
Of the 0G indicator.
Perfect.
And let's go ahead and make this nice and big so we can see it as best as we possibly can. But it is right there, a little plush doll. Is that a little astronaut?
I don't know. What's going on here? Yeah, there he is. Okay, I was looking in the wrong place.
It's above his knee.
Little dude.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure. It may be a character of some sort that I don't recognize.
Yeah, maybe.
It may be something even more obvious than that I don't recognize. But there it is.
Yeah.
Jared,
All of Twitter is asking what. Okay, so the mascot. All right, so it's the mascot of the UAE Space Center.
I was gonna guess it had something to do with UAE since they were our first time guests.
Yep.
Okay.
So there you go.
Can you Google mascot of UAE?
So the mascot's name is. I'm gonna get this wrong. I'm gonna get this wrong. Suhail. I got that wrong. I said that like a white boy. It's fine. But yeah, that is the mascot of the UAE's Space Center.
Okay.
Couple facts courtesy of NASAspaceflight.com. Second brightest star in the sky. Mascot accompanied astronaut on the first. So this mascot also came along for the first ride at the space station. And he's going to be wearing a SpaceX spacesuit. So there you go.
Okay. There you have
Pretty cool.
Well, folks, it's been a pleasure to witness this with you all. We hope you enjoyed this coverage of the Crew-6 launch. We'll keep an eye on their orbit over the next 24 hours, docking at the International Space Station at 1:17 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. 24 hours from now, they'll begin their 6-month stay at the International Space Station, allowing Crew-5 to come home in about a week or so. If you've enjoyed this, then you'll also enjoy our upcoming behind the scenes episode of the Carolina Weather Group, where we will take you behind the scenes even more at Kennedy Space Center. We have so much footage. It's going to be, pun intended, a blast. And we hope to bring that your way a week from tonight, Wednesday, March 8th. Will be the premiere date we intend for that really awesome experience. Really hope everyone who wants to be a part of this keeps an eye out for those NASA social events, Jared. They are
Dragon SpaceX, no
incredible.
response required. Ground has pulled go for upcoming phase burn.
And they're going to continue on.
SpaceX Dragon copies the go for the phase burn, and this is our comm check with the handheld mic.
SpaceX copies for the cabin mic.
Cool.
If you're watching at WCNC Plus, we will return you to regular scheduled programming here in a few minutes. If you've been watching on the Carolina Weather Group, thanks so much for joining us. To all of our viewers across the platforms, stay weather aware as we head through the next 2 days. We'll be watching for scattered storms across the Carolinas, which could bring strong winds, hail, and possibly an isolated tornado or two. It is a lower end severe risk, but one that is being monitored very closely. And so we'll keep you abreast of that as well, too. But on behalf of Jared Smith, Peter Palanamente, and everyone here at the Carolina Weather Group, I'm James Brierton. Thanks so much for joining us. Go Crew-6.